Well, cool. Well, for everyone listening, I didn't really explain at the beginning. Not an actual tornado, but something similar to a tornado went through right in the middle of our first part of our episode, and we got cut off. And we didn't have power for 30 hours. We just got it back
Really?
yesterday afternoon. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I mean, it took a long time, so it was actually a pretty big thing. Like we had a ton of Chicago got smoked. So, thank you, Matt, for coming back on here. And
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
you
Sorry I
know,
got interrupted.
not obviously nothing we could do about it. But thanks for coming back on. If I remember correctly, right before we got cut off, it was funny. I was trying to backtrack and think about it yesterday. We were talking about 2013 and your first run at basically getting to the Atlantic Coast Finals. I think I don't remember the exact name of what it was called because we were really getting into how you started just making some weekend money and it was kind of becoming
Yeah.
a side hustle competing in CrossFit tournaments. And
Yeah.
then,
I mean, I have the memory of a goldfish.
yeah, no,
So
you're fine.
so I mean, there might be some repeat going on part two.
That's fine.
Um, yeah. So
You said you were like at the state, you were like about to start and you were like the only one in line in the
okay.
last
Yeah. Yeah.
heat.
So that was the East Coast Championships,
Okay.
the
And you were saying you
ECC.
got one offer for a deal for like a
Oh,
I don't
okay. Yeah.
I think it was
Yeah.
protein powder, and you were
Yeah.
saying how people were you read through it and you're like, what the hell is some of this stuff in here?
Yeah. I mean,
That's kind of where we were.
I didn't care like how many obligations I had, I was all for it. I'm like, you're gonna pay me and give me free supplements.
Yeah,
I'm in.
right.
And then that's how I met like to this day, I mean, best friend, manager, agent. Um, it's rare you'll see me traveling without him attached to my hip, Matt O'Keefe. And so I mean, that's how that relationship kind of took off. Was he kind of said like, I'm in the insurance business. I read contracts all the time. I kind of know what some of the
Oh, is that his
legal
background? It's
mumbo
like,
jumbo
got it.
means. And so he literally just read it as a friend and then brought it back to me with more money, less like posting, less appearances, everything. And yeah, and so word got around to other athletes that there was someone that could do that, was willing to do that. And yeah, so I mean, everyone just started coming to him with
That's
contracts.
wild.
Hey, can you review this? Can you help me out here? Can you talk to this person for me? And so I mean, he saw an opening in the space and just ran with it.
Sure.
And,
Yeah.
I mean, now I think he has 18 athletes.
Oh, wow.
I mean,
That's
a lot of the top perennial athletes. Yeah, so I mean, he turned it into a business.
That's awesome. And so for you at this point, did you win that championship?
Yep. Yeah. So that
Yeah.
one, yeah, so that was kind of my first time ever, getting to meet some of the games athletes. I remember I got to actually talk to and meet a lot of these guys. And at the time I had no idea who they were.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
And so I'm like, oh, we're in the same situation. We're doing the same thing. We're just joking around in the warm up area. And then I would be talking to O'Keefe and he's like, hey, I'm like a kid that he just dropped off at daycare. And he's like, hey, you making any friends back there? And I'm like, yeah. I'm hanging out a lot with this guy, Tommy Hucklepuck or something. And he's like, Tommy Hackenbrook? And I'm like, yeah, that's him. Yeah, he's super nice guy. And he's like, yeah, he's the 2-time affiliate champ. Like, you should know his name.
That's
and then,
funny.
that was the first time I met Chris Spieler. And
Okay. Yeah.
so, I mean, it was really cool for me, getting to meet all these guys, doing some higher level competition. Yeah, it was a really good time. And, I think I really, really enjoyed those times because no one knew who I was. So,
Sure. But it was
if
totally different.
if I did well, it was pats on the back. And if I didn't, like, there was no expectation. So there's no criticism. So, every workout I can just go out and I have no care in the world. I'm just swinging for the fences on every event. Yeah, I look back at like the good old days, like those were fun times.
Oh, I bet, man. And was that like, I'm sure that was obviously winning that. I mean, that's got to be like, was that the springboard into like making bigger money and like making into, at that point, did you start to kind of pivot to be like, wait, maybe this could be more than just like a side hustle on the weekends?
I think at that point, I don't think that really brought too many like sponsors barking, like the one supplement sponsor came into the picture then, but especially, we're talking 6-7 years ago. All sponsors cared about was your performance at open regionals games, like
Sure.
these non-sanctioned, non-CrossFit run competitions. They were cool, and like you raised some eyebrows in that network. But it's not like, Wadapalooza or Granite Games or Dubai is now, where it's like, if you win one of those now, it's pretty rare that you're doing well there and not well at the games. Whereas back then, these kind of smaller competitions, there wasn't always a good pool of athletes. So, you may have someone random show up and just have the events line up and them do well at them. But I think for my regional, that definitely put me on the map. That put me on the radar of the other competitors that knew they would be seeing me again in like 6 months at regional.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Got it. Yeah. No, that makes sense. So then that's 2013. 2014 season comes around. Is it at this point, are you done with school in your, what did you do in 2014? You're still in school?
I was in school until the 2016 season.
Oh, were you really? Okay.
Until halfway through the 2016 season. 2014, I'm still kind of taking it lightly, training an hour a day, still kind of looking at it as like hustling.
Yeah. So even in 2014, you were training an hour a day.
Yeah, probably.
Okay.
I may have done like a little bit extra, like I had a rower in my basement. So, I may have done some rowing intervals as a second session.
Okay.
But even that, I didn't know what I was doing. It was
Yeah.
just sit on the rower, pull as hard as you can for as long as you can, and
Right.
take a break. 2014, still full-time student. Yeah, so the 2014 season came, and I got second place at the games.
Yeah.
I showed up to the games, like I made some of the most foolish mistakes that year because I had no idea what I was doing. I didn't know what I was in for. Like I didn't know, like, all right, for 15 events over 4 days, you need to eat this way, you need to sleep this way, you need to do this for body maintenance. I was just taking it for what it was. I was having a good
at
old
that
time.
point, was that probably like the longest stretch of a competition you've ever done?
Oh
too?
my God.
Yeah.
Like triple of anything I'd ever done before.
Definitely.
So, I just didn't know the importance of, eating.
Oh, sure.
So
yeah.
like during the games, you're not hungry when you're working out and competing like that. And it's like your windows of downtime are so small. So you just never, you never want to sit down and like have a big feed because you're like, I need to perform in like 45 minutes. I don't want to go out there with a full belly. So I remember it was like the second or third day of competition, thinking like, man, this is really convenient that I'm not hungry. Like I don't have to eat. This is awesome. I'm saving so much time.
Yeah.
By the night event, I remember being on the floor and like they're like 20-second warning, 10-second warning. And I remember thinking like I could curl up on this starting mat and just fall asleep right here.
Wow.
I remember being so tired. I was like, and I told myself, I was like, if you hit the finish line, as soon as you hit the finish line, you can lay down and just take a nap. And so looking back now, it's like, oh, I didn't eat anything the entire day. Of course I was tired. But yeah, so I came out of that competition with second place, and that was a nice chunk of change for someone who's just kind of winging it.
Going to school, winging it, training an hour a day. Yeah.
Yeah. And but I came back from that competition, and I remember showing back up to my internship at that aerospace company.
Okay.
And my boss looked at me and was like, what the hell are you doing here? I was like, what are you talking about? I have like 2 weeks left. And he's like, yeah, I figured you would have quit. Like you just made a ton of money. Why'd you show back up? And I was like, oh, I didn't know that was an option.
That's my side hustle, man.
Exactly.
What are you talking about?
2015. After the 14 season is when a lot of the sponsors come in, because at the time, a lot of the other competitions weren't recognized. All sponsors in the space cared about was the games, was your placement at the games. For a long time in contracts, that was the only competition that was incentivized of like, if you get podium at the games, this is your bonus. If you win the game, you get top 10. that was the only incentive bonus really,
Okay.
for most contracts. Um, yeah, so, that's when a lot of like the bigger name sponsors, that's when the Nikes, the Reeboks,
Yeah, I'm sure
started,
after being second at the
started
games, that had to
knocking.
right.
And, and then basically like, for lack of a better term, I just fucked off all the 2015 season. Like
Okay. Yeah. 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 I think I've heard you talk about that before.
yeah, it was,
Is that and then why was that? At that point were you thinking
well,
like
because I was taking it so lax in the 2014 season. Like when I was in the gym, I would try hard and I would do my thing. But
sure.
as soon as I left the gym, that was it. Like I wasn't eating right. I wasn't putting effort into my sleep schedule, into mindset, anything. It was just
Okay.
I trained hard, end of story. Um, and then so I got second place without knowing what I was doing. And so then I was just resting on my laurels of like, oh man, well, I can just train a little bit harder. And the first place guy is retiring. I'm a
Yeah.
shoe in. And then, there's that false sense of security of I had won the open that year. So, I was going in the top ranked person. And so, I got the results I deserved I got second place again.
Yeah.
And still, the
So
sponsorships
even
were,
at that point though, can I ask, like, were you like I have to imagine like if I was in those shoes, you finish second and then you're like you're kind of training just at the level you've been training. You're still in school. At this point, are you kind of starting? Is the wheel starting to kind of spin? The like, am I really going to finish school? Am I just going to like go all in on this?
um,
Because if I can win this year, like,
so, I mean, looking at it, it's, so for anyone who doesn't know, winning the CrossFit games, I think the guaranteed prize money is 300,000. It's a great payday.
yeah, right,
Um, if you look at it as like, if someone said that my annual salary is 300,000, it's like, man, kudos. That's great.
right,
But you're not living carefree of any expense at 300,000 a year. Like you're comfortable by all means, but you're not going out buying Ferraris and just vacation
yeah.
homes and
You're
all
not
this
Michael
stuff.
Jordan or anything like that at that level, right? You're
And
not.
now knock it down one more time of like, all right, you had 1 year of 300,000.
Yeah,
It's like, okay, that's a nice perk.
sure.
But if it's only one time, it's not really life altering.
Yeah, yeah, that's true.
Um, so I always looked at it as like, okay, even if I got that one time, I'm not retiring off it. So I still need my education. And, just for so long, it was like school was the number one priority. It always was. I always said like, no, like CrossFit comes second, school is first. So I had some good paydays. I had some good sponsorship. I was making great money for a college student,
Right.
but
Yeah,
I
I'm sure.
knew. I mean, even now, like I've lasted. My sports career has lasted 5 times longer than I ever thought it would. Um, so so yeah, school was always the number one priority. I always thought I would have to fall back to being an engineer at some point, and so that stayed my number one priority until forget when it was. I think it was after the 15 season. My mom, who's family physician, incredible, like incredibly intelligent woman, finally kind of pulled me aside and was like, "Yo, you're gonna like you're gonna take this CrossFit thing seriously. Like you have a crazy opportunity."
This
You
is
know,
after finishing second,
I
both
think, yeah, I
14,
think it was
15.
after the 15 games,
Okay.
and I had one, maybe 2 semesters left in school, and she was kind of like, "Hey, like, are you gonna put the school thing on hold and pursue this? Because like this is once in a lifetime."
Sure. Oh yeah.
And so that was really shocking because for her, she's a doctor. School was always such a huge priority. Her and my dad both had a sports career, and so getting that like almost permission from your parents to like stop school, it's like, oh, okay.
That was gonna be one of my
And
questions. Is like, yeah, wait, what'd your parents think of this whole
yeah.
endeavor? Yeah,
um
that's wild. I mean, to get the backing
so
to go for it.
yeah, so I had 1 semester left, and I think if because it was like I had that semester, and then I think I had like 4 months
Okay.
before the next games. So I just finished it up. I was like, I don't want to like put this on hold for 2-3 years, however long it is, and then have to like refresh
Jump
my
back.
memory on all
Yeah.
of this. And so I was like, fuck it, I'll just finish it and then never look back type thing. But yeah.
That's wild. So then, okay, so then 2015 happens. You finish second. The year goes by. Now we're heading into the 2016 games. You have your degree.
Yep.
And so what's your mindset at this point? Like, I mean, I know you've obviously gotten 2 purses from second place. You've won some other tournaments. You have some sponsorship deals. Like at this point, is it any of that change, or is it still kind of like, this is still gonna be like this might be a short-term thing? Like
I think after the 15 games, like for lack of a better term, I was depressed. I had set this expectation. I thought I had it in the bag, and then it was just like this punch in the face and just this wave of disappointment. And so didn't train for a couple months, didn't go to the gym, anything. And like I didn't know if I wanted to try it all again and have like the option or the possibility of dedicating my life to this thing and never winning.
right.
Like after coming second place twice, now it's a real possibility of, man, like I could dedicate everything and not get the results I want. So, just sat down with a notepad and kind of went through it of like, well, what do I want? And I think the conclusion of that was just, I'm not going to leave anything to what if. I think the base of all of my notes were that I wouldn't be disappointed in myself of never winning if I did everything. Like the 2015 season was so disappointing because I knew there was things that I knew I should be doing, but I just cut the corners on.
Yeah, sure.
So I just went through and, 2016, it was like I gave myself a bedtime, a wake up time. I gave myself a diet. I forced myself to do warm-ups, cool downs, prehab, scheduled body maintenance. And I just told myself, like, I'm not going to leave anything to what if. Like I am dedicating
You like
every
engineered
waking.
the hell out of your training.
It's that baby steps
Yeah.
for every single day. And basically just told myself, like, I'm okay for a year to not have a social life, to not, see friends, or like I had a girlfriend. But it was a distance relationship. And even that was, she was living in Providence and I'm in Vermont. And it was every other weekend, one of us would drive. So it ended up, you're doing the drive once a month. And then like 3 months before the games, I just finally said like, hey, I'm sorry. Like I can't go to your apartment because it's 4 hours in the car. Then I'm not training at my gym. I'm not sleeping in my bed. I'm not eating my food. And so she made the trip up to me.
Okay.
I left nothing to what if.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that makes sense. Yeah, it totally makes sense. So you became like scientific and then you win. So after you win, does that unlock a whole new level of like this becoming a career for you?
Yeah. I think at that point, you know, the thought of like, maybe trying to find a part-time engineering job or something like that, it was like, that was off the table. It was like, okay, I'm
Right.
doing this full time. And,
Yeah.
my every waking moment revolved around it.
Sure.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. I think I've been with most of my sponsors for a long time now. So I think since 2016, I've had about the same group kind
Oh,
of
have you?
supporting
Okay.
me. Yeah.
Yeah. Because who's your main ones? I mean, I know you're with Nike, Rogue. I saw Beam because I'm big in like I'm interested in like the CBD
Yeah.
space. So that's an interesting one I saw.
Yeah. 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 Nike, Rogue, Beam, Compex, Theragun. Probably going to get in trouble. I'm going to
Oh
forget
yeah,
some.
I know
I
what I'm
have the
talking about.
memory of a
Yeah,
goldfish.
no, you're fine. I tried GoWad for the first time recently, and
Yeah.
you're like on there, like, oh shit, there you go.
Yeah. And, it's early on when, it's a side hustle. And like, if any sponsor came up to me and they're like, hey, we'll give you this amount for a post, or we'll give you this amount to promote us for the year. I was like, dude,
Right.
give me your money.
Yeah, like this is easy. Post, get paid. Yeah.
Exactly. Like I'm used to working this aerospace job where it's like you're sitting at a desk for 2 weeks, 40 hours a week. And then my take home pay, I think, was like $1,400.
Yeah.
And so when someone's coming up and like, hey, we're going to pay you like $2,000 a month, it was like, show me
Yeah.
where
You're
to
like, wait,
sign.
that's just, wait, hold on. You're like, wait a minute. That just
Yeah.
pays for more than the internship.
Exactly. Didn't care about the product, didn't care if I used it or liked it or anything.
Yeah.
And then, once I spent more time in the space and, I've been lucky enough to, I have the opportunity to kind of take my pick of what I want.
Sure.
In terms of sponsorships, I kind of changed that around of like, okay, the number one rule of a salesman is don't sell something you wouldn't buy yourself. So, I've partnered myself up with these sponsors that A, I like the product, B, I use it on a regular basis. And then the last part is that I get along with the people at the company.
So important.
It's just, one of those little slivers of, if you're mentally healthy, it's going to reflect in your performance. So if the people that I work with on a daily basis are more enjoyable, I'm more likely to be more enjoyable. So,
Right.
yeah.
So that's interesting. So then, yeah. So I guess like, as we're having this conversation, like really thinking about, CrossFit and athletics as a career at CrossFit for people who aren't, into CrossFit. I know for me, when I started working at RX Bar in 2017, it's been interesting for me over the last few years to just see, I feel like it's one of the few athletic spaces that there's so many like cult brands that follow along with the CrossFit community, like more so than any other sport that I know of. It seems
Yeah.
that
I
way.
mean, yeah, it's one of those things where I always find it funny. And I did a lot of thinking on this, and like, I may be way off base, but it's like when someone's like having a pair of Metcons for the first couple of years, like you only had a pair of Metcons if you did CrossFit,
Yeah.
or like a Rogue t-shirt. People
Yes.
only wore Rogue t-shirts if you did CrossFit. And so like I see it all the time in the airport of people wearing their Metcons, wearing their Rogue t-shirts. And
Yes.
it's almost like they want to give the silent nod to the other person.
It's like the Jeep wave.
Exactly. It's like you're part of this club.
Yeah.
And so it's like almost your way of announcing it without ever announcing it.
100%.
And so it's like when you're walking, like I can walk through an airport and it's like, yep, 1, 2, 3, there they are, right in the
That's so
terminal.
funny. That's true, isn't it? Yeah. No, it is. It's funny. And I mean, it's got to be good for someone like you though, too. I mean, as far as like CrossFit being, at least like the career side of it being more than just the events you're partaking in and trying to win. I mean, that opens the door, I would think, for a lot of like sponsorship revenue for you.
Oh yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And it's been wild in like the last probably 18 months of, non-CrossFit based brands coming into the space.
Oh, really?
Like before, I'd say like probably 2, 3 years ago, it was like nobody had a sponsorship that wasn't a CrossFit company. And now you're starting to see like, like stuff like Gillette, Chipotle,
Oh,
Ram, like they're setting up booths at competitions. And it's like,
sure. You're like, that's weird.
yeah, what's your involvement? They're like, well, I mean, it's like kind of like, well, the NFL has a car sponsor,
Yeah,
and it's like
sure.
has nothing to do with the sport. It's just like it's a great space to be in. Yeah, so I mean, it's been wild seeing that change in the last couple of years.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think it's so interesting too, because it's one of the few things that I've at least come across where like I have a garage gym that we set up at our house. And so
Mhm.
like I can do the same workouts technically as like I
Yeah.
could do the same WOD as you and then watch you compete. Like everyone has the chance, I guess, to make it to the stage where like that's not the case with the NFL or the NBA. Like I can play basketball all day, but I'm way past the chance of
Well, I mean
the Lakers picking me up.
that's one thing that's like so makes CrossFit so different is that right now most of the fans or spectators are
Mhm.
participants.
Yeah. Right.
Like you go to an NFL game, it's like how many guys there watching are putting on the pads when they go home? Like
Yeah. Right.
zero.
Zero.
Um, but it's like you go to the CrossFit games and it's like, yeah, probably 99% have a CrossFit membership or doing these workouts at home type thing. Yeah. So, I mean, it's pretty wild. And occasionally I think it was 3 years ago was the first time I ever had someone come up to me on the street. They're like, oh, hey, you're Matt Fraser, right? Like, yeah, hey, nice to meet you. And small talk with a fan that you're meeting, the first question you ask is, oh, where do you live? What gym do you go to?
Yeah, right.
And it's a small enough network. It's the likelihood that I either know someone there or I've been there, something like that. It's pretty high.
Okay, yeah.
But you're just kind of shooting the shit with someone, and it was 3 years ago in Nashville, and the guy was like, I don't do CrossFit. I was
Oh,
like,
whoa. So
well,
you're,
then how do you know who I am? And he was like, I watched your movie on Netflix. He had
oh,
watched the fittest film.
yeah.
And I was like, oh wow. And then like it kind of slowly started building, and it was like, holy shit, this thing is growing. Like a lot of people that have nothing to do with CrossFit are starting to know some of the names and the players in the sport. I mean, it's been crazy seeing where it came from, like just when I got into the space.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. I mean, between the growth of the people participating, I even think small things like Buttery Bros and Craig Ritchie and those guys that are like getting these huge YouTube followings are just like
Yep.
sucking all these people into the CrossFit community to be like, wait, what is this? And they have cool
Yeah.
videos and they're fun to watch. And it gets people like understanding what CrossFit is. I think also the fact that in COVID, you can do a lot of this stuff at home if you have the right setup. It was
I mean,
might have been a
if
huge
if
thing, you know?
you're one of the lucky few that had home equipment before the pandemic hit, like I remember seeing like Concept 2 rowers on Craigslist for like $2,500,
Yeah.
and they were selling.
Yeah.
And I mean, I can't tell you how many times just people I knew hit me up. They're like, dude, do you know someone at Rogue? And I'm like, yeah. Like, what
We
what are you getting
want,
at? And
yeah.
they're like, their website is out of everything. I need a kettlebell or a dumbbell. Like, I'm like, dude, I'm so like, they're backed up, like it's just
Yeah.
everyone, as soon as a home lockdown hit, first thing everyone got was like a home gym.
Oh, for
So it's
sure.
like of 2020, the biggest flex you can have is a home gym.
I know it really was. I felt like literally for the last year and a half, I got made fun of so much at work for like, oh, I'm working out in my garage. And then
Really?
overnight, kind of not really. I mean, like at RX, people probably are more so on the front edge of like what CrossFit is and
Mm-hmm.
definitely like the garage training than companies I've worked at before. But a lot of like I live out in the suburbs. A lot of the people I work with live in the city. So they go to,
Yeah.
high end Globo
Yeah.
gyms
Yeah.
and,
Yeah.
that's very common. And so, but it was just so funny because then as soon as COVID hit, I mean, I had just people offering me hundreds of dollars to come work out in my garage. Just like
Really?
people were like, please, I'll pay you anything. Like, I just need to come work out. I'm like, so funny how that changes. But it's so
Yeah.
interesting. I mean, that's really cool. I think for me, it's been interesting to learn from you today and the last time. And I'd be curious what your thoughts are here. Because I think people listening, especially if they want to get into CrossFit or just people that are young that want to try to make a career in sports, like, for you, do you feel like now that you've won the CrossFit Games 4 times and then your chance at winning 5 is coming up here shortly,
Mm-hmm.
do you feel like to make it into a long-lasting career, I don't know about you, but we talked about it a little bit briefly at the beginning, between events and trying to win those and the purse you can get from that. There's sponsorships, obviously, if you're a high performing athlete, I think those kind of open up.
Mm-hmm.
And then are there any other things that you and some of the top performers are trying to do? I mean, like I would think there could be, I saw Rich Froning obviously has like Froning Farms now, and he's trying to like grow
Mm-hmm.
other things out of what was just CrossFit. I think that's an
Yeah.
interesting thing that it seems like a lot of you guys are smart and I'm sure are thinking of other things to kind of spread out beyond just truly competing.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, I'm in the generation where you, I think there's multiple or a couple of us that are making a living off it,
Mm-hmm.
just off competing.
Yeah.
And the sponsorships that come with it. The generation right before me, they were all gym owners or coaches. So it's like, yeah, maybe they could have made a living off it. But now that they're done competing, they're trying to sell programming or just branch into something else because they're not competing anymore. And they're trying to use their name to keep some income
Right.
rolling
Sure.
in.
Yeah.
Um, and before my generation, I don't know if there were any guys that were doing it as a full-time one income gig.
Okay.
I think the only one was probably Rich that could have made a living off sponsorships, and prize money, but he still had his gym and programming and all that stuff. Whereas now, I'd say there's probably anywhere between 6 and 10 guys that are making a good income
Okay.
off just competing in sponsorships.
So it's grown, but it's still it's relatively small, really.
Yeah, I mean, just in the last 3 years, we went from only one guy making an income off it, to now. I'm trying to run through a list of names. I'd say on the female side, there's more that are
Okay.
making it,
Oh,
that
that's
are
cool.
doing it
I
as
didn't
their
know that.
full-time job.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, but I mean, so you have guys that have never won the CrossFit Games
Yeah.
that are raking in some good cash. They're making more than a doctor.
Yeah. That's actually pretty impressive. I hadn't thought about that.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know who those people are necessarily, but I have an idea. Oh yeah, that's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good point. They've never won and they're still doing very well.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'd say on the women's side, there's probably, 10 to 15
Okay.
of the females that are doing it. And, but yeah, I mean, it's really great. And then to see the athletes kind of branching out and trying to make another small business, where most small business owners are starting and their friends and family know their name. So they're the ones hearing the message of what they're trying to sell or promote or whatever it is.
Right.
Whereas like most CrossFitters, you got 1 million followers right off the bat. So if you're selling t-shirts or food or whatever it is, it's like, well, you're already speaking to 1 million people, even if it's falling on mostly deaf ears. Even if you get 1% of the people you're preaching to click on your link, well, you've already hit the ground running. You're
Right.
already like a step ahead of everyone else. So yeah, I mean, it's a great opportunity. And sponsors are starting to see that, and they're, even if it's not the athlete that's kind of coming up with the business or doing the business,
Mm-hmm.
sponsors are coming in, or just different companies are coming in. They're like, hey, you're going to say this is your company, and like you do nothing, and
Got it.
you
You're just the
collect
face.
50%.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Well, that's awesome for you guys, because that means that, the space is continuing to grow and it's going in the right direction. And it's
Yeah.
good that through all of like COVID and all the stuff with Greg, that it's just continuing to go. And I think with the sale, I feel like I'd be curious to get your thoughts on that. But I think to me, it seems like there's a lot of excitement around what the CrossFit community and games will look like this year.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I would have bet dimes to dollars that, all these athletes were like, we're demanding the sale of CrossFit. I'm like, he's not going to sell this thing. And even if he's willing to, it's like, this is a multi-million-dollar deal. I was like, to sign just a regular run of the mill contract takes 2 or 3 months of negotiations and back and forth and reviewing.
Right.
I'm like, you're looking at a couple $100 million for a company. I was like, this is going to take years.
Yeah. Right.
And then to see it actually happen, it's like, oh my God.
I mean, it made so much sense when I was looking back through all the details. It's like you needed someone who was a diehard CrossFitter, probably someone who opened their own
Yep.
box, but also was very wealthy. Like, I mean, it couldn't have been a more perfect combo with Eric. So
Yeah. I mean, I've spent a bit of time with him.
Oh, have you?
I've talked to him a little bit. Yeah, I am very excited to see what he does moving forward. Not just for the competitive side. That's I'm obviously biased in the part that I care about the most. I don't own a gym. I don't coach, anything like that. It's like I just compete. So that's the part that I care about the most.
Sure.
But even just some of the ideas he was kind of just brushing by me
Mm-hmm.
on the affiliate side. I told him, I was like, dude, if you act on even a fraction of what you're telling me, I was like, you're going to crush it.
Oh, that's
Like,
great. Yeah.
Yeah. So
He's got good
I'm
ideas and he's
good
very
ideas.
passionate about it. I can tell.
I mean, good ideas, but not only that, but he has the experience. He's done it before. And then he has the team around him. He has the resources around him to actually put this plan into action and make it happen.
Which that's half the battle, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
I personally feel like it's great to see. No offense to Greg. I obviously don't know him or anything, but seeing someone who you can tell who's very into CrossFit leading CrossFit, I think that was a huge win for the CrossFit community just in general.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. What are your, we have to ask you, what are your thoughts on the new format and how that's all going to play out? Are
um
you pumped for it? Not pumped for it as much?
I am. I'm relieved that they gave us something. I've set up,
Yeah.
and the one thing I was talking to Eric about when he was here was, I said, like, I hate having like a million options and having to pick like the perfect combination of traits to put together to make my ideal situation.
Yeah.
I was telling, I
Well,
was
then
like,
how do you train too if it's constantly changing and moving? It's got to be impossible.
well, I mean, we've done the same phase of training for the last 3 months because the
Yeah.
games they keep postponing it 3 weeks, 3 weeks, 3 weeks. And it's like, guys, I can only do this phase of training so many
I was going to
times.
say you're going to be burnt out.
Yeah. So I was very relieved when they just said, like, all right, 30 and 30 online, top 5 out to California. I was just like, okay, I don't like, I mean, we still don't know very much on like scoring system, how many events it is, when we have to do them. Like, we don't know any of the details,
Okay. At
but I was just like, don't care. I was
least I
like,
know.
all I can do is get as fit as possible in 4 weeks, do the online. And then, I mean, like, anytime I've had this conversation, people just assume like, oh, okay, yeah, when you go out to California and it's 5-5, how do you like that? I'm like, I don't know, I'm going to make it.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. I
there's
mean,
no guarantee,
that's a small number
you know?
too, So
I'm like, last year, like, Brent Fikowski got cut after the top 20. Like, who saw that coming?
sure.
Pat Vellner didn't make the top 10. Like, who saw that coming?
Right.
It may be me this year. I hope not. I'm doing everything I can to make sure that's not the situation, but it's a very real possibility.
Yeah.
And that's what it is every year. Like, every year at regionals, I never booked my travel out to California or to Wisconsin until like Sunday night after regionals, when I like punched my
Oh,
ticket.
yeah.
You always heard those awkward stories of like these people that, they finish the open and they book their travels and everything to the games.
Finals. Oh,
And
jeez.
they're just like, oh yeah, oh my, I was top rank out of the open going into regionals. How could I not get top 5? And then it's like, and then they come like 14th, and it's like, ooh,
Right.
ooh,
Right.
that's rough,
Yeah. Then you can either go and watch or try to cancel your ticket.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, that's wild. Are you well, that's exciting. I mean, that's coming up really soon. Are you pumped? I'm sure you're pumped. I mean, this is a big year for you. The big
I'm,
opportunity. And are you trying to not
I,
even think about it and just treat it like a different year?
no, I mean, I treat every year the same. It is what it is.
That's great. Yeah.
It's, you know, every year I'm going into the games, and I, like, my emotions, and I start cracking a little bit. Like, a couple weeks out, that's when the insecurities are all coming alive. Like, you have one bad workout 3 weeks before the games. Whew, like, you want to see an unstable person. Like, there it is.
Yeah.
Because it's not like, okay, good, I found a weakness, I have time to fix it. It's like, oh my God, I found a weakness and I don't have any time.
And let's hope it's
uh,
not in the programming.
exactly.
Yeah.
But then, getting closer to, I'm only around people that, you know I'm going to be around for life. So, Sammy's, she's learned, like, before the games, to be telling me, like, no matter the outcome, I'm here. No matter the outcome, nothing changes. If you win, great. If you don't, doesn't matter. It's
Oh, that's cool.
like life goes on. So, it's like almost like this blanket of serenity
Yeah.
the week prior, of just like, okay, I've done what I can. I feel good about everything I've done. But if something just happens to come up that I can't do, then there's nothing I can do about it. So feeling bad about that isn't going to change anything.
Right. Yeah. No, that totally makes sense. That totally makes
So,
sense.
I mean, going in this year, yeah, would I love to win? Yeah, of course. Am I trying like every waking moment to make that happen? Yeah, absolutely. Um, but it's not my identity.
Yeah.
Nothing,
Right.
no one new is coming into my life if I win, and no one is leaving my life if I don't win. So, yeah.
That's powerful. I mean, that's a powerful perspective. I got to give you that. That's awesome. Are you, I think I know we've been talking for a while, so I want to be conscious of your time, but are you, what is, you maybe you don't know this. Maybe it totally depends on like what happens this year or next year, but like what is, right now in Matt Fraser's mind, what is the rest of your CrossFit career? How do you see it playing out? Maybe you don't know, but then, and what's your idea of after CrossFit, or is there an after
Um,
CrossFit?
I mean, like after CrossFit, or after I'm done competing.
Good question. I guess both. Yeah, like how long, like would you compete for as long as you possibly can? Is that kind of where you're at now? Like do you love it
Um,
enough and
I,
and
I've
want
I've
to do
always
that?
said as long as I'm happy and healthy, I'll keep
Okay.
competing.
Yeah.
Like with my weightlifting career, I was miserable for the last year of it. Um, I just and I lost the love for it so much that when I left it, I wanted nothing to do with it. I
Oh,
lost contact with some great friends, just because I hated the sport so much. I had so much resentment towards it that uh, even just my friends being involved in it, I was like, oh well, we can't be friends. Um, so I just want to make sure that doesn't happen, because I have some friends that will be in my life forever,
yeah.
from being in CrossFit. So I want to make sure that I'm always enjoying what I'm doing. I've found the value of, like, once you find something you love, you never work a day in your life.
Right.
And I was the typical 18-year-old, like, bullshit. Everyone
I got to
everyone
go to the
hates their
aerospace job
job.
and wear a tie.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I was like, bullshit. That's just so corny. And then I turned this into a career, and I was like, oh my God, I'm getting paid to exercise.
So
Like,
cool.
this is awesome.
Yeah.
um, so so in terms of competing, as long as I'm happy and healthy, I'll keep going. I mean, it's better than hanging drywall or sitting in a cubicle for me.
Yeah.
Um, and then, I mean, at this point, I find it hard to think that I'll have a life where I'm not involved in some form of CrossFit. I've been in it for so long. I've made a good enough name for myself that I think I have a leg to stand on in terms of whatever I want my involvement to be. Um, like my friend O'Keefe, he runs like 5 of the biggest competitions in the world. So if I want to get involved in the competition side, or um, I've had some interest in doing programming or coaching.
Definitely.
um, I think the programming side would be online. You can go through any of my social media, any interview. Like, I don't talk about training at all. I play
Yeah,
my
you really
cards.
don't, do you? I
I
was
play
thinking
my
about it today.
cards very close to my chest.
Is that strategic? Just as
Yeah,
far,
yeah,
yeah.
100% intentional.
Yeah, makes sense.
I don't want to give anyone, competitors or whoever it is, any idea of what I'm doing or why I'm doing it. Um,
That's smart.
but but the day I'm done competing, oh, I'll tell everyone.
I mean, honestly, that could turn around and be a huge benefit to you. You've been holding it so tight that you might be able to sell it, and people are just going to flock to that.
Mhm. Yeah. So you know, I feel like I've collected a good wealth of knowledge of training over the last couple of years, of stuff that works, stuff that doesn't work. Whether it's actual physical programming or mindset or competing,
Yeah,
all the things that go into competing other than the physical performance of it. So, you know, kind of sharing that. I think in-person coaching, I don't know, the fairy tale right now is that build a big studio home gym and just kind of train people for the fun of it, or just give access to people that don't have access to a expensive gym.
oh, that's cool. Yeah,
I have to figure out, like, the whole liability side of that, of
sure.
you don't want someone coming in and suing you.
Yeah, right.
But yeah, I think that would be a lot of fun. I think it'd be a great way to meet people,
Definitely.
and just be
Right.
helpful to the people that you live around.
Yeah, definitely. Would you ever be interested in owning your own affiliate?
No, I don't think so.
No.
I've I've seen enough people that have done that. Um, I think if I were in a different spot financially, I think it would be the natural progression of
Yeah.
to own a gym, open it up, and kind of make it into a business. But how I am right now, the house we just bought has a big, like, detached barn garage.
Oh, cool.
you know, I've accumulated equipment over the years that I can open up an affiliate, like a small
I'm
affiliate.
sure you could. Yeah,
So because I don't financially need it, you know, I just want to keep it fun so
definitely.
that there's no expectations of just like,
It
oh, you know,
becomes a
you
it becomes a
weren't
job,
open
right? I
Sunday
mean, yeah,
morning, and it's like, well, no, it's my house, you
yeah,
know, like
yeah,
if it, yeah. Um, yeah. So I think right now, I don't think I would open an affiliate. But you know, I just want to have a space that I can just kind of have people come hang out, try to help out people that couldn't afford it otherwise.
yeah. No, I love that. That's awesome. That's super cool. Um, what was the other thing I wanted to ask you? I have a couple last questions. Oh, just curious, just in general, how has COVID impacted training at all? Like, I don't know if it's affected you guys going to Mayhem or not at all, or has it been
Yeah,
more at
so
home or done
Mayhem shut
anything?
down. Mayhem shut down for a little while. Tia and I were told we weren't allowed to go in. Like we asked, we're like, hey, like we have a key. Like the gym shut down, but like we
But
can
we're
still
not
go
part of
in,
that,
right?
right?
Because you know, like on Sundays the gym is closed. I think they might have a morning class, but like the gym is closed the rest of the day, and it's like, well, no, we have a key. Like we need to train.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, during the whole COVID shutdown, we were like, hey, we're still good to train, right? And they're like, no, you are not allowed in. We're like, wait, are you fucking serious? Like,
Yeah.
we have to train, dude. Yeah, so that, you know, luckily it was early enough in the season. We just packed up a truck of equipment and went to a buddy's place.
Oh, okay. There you go.
Just kind of got out of town.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, other than that, hasn't really changed too much. You know, competition's getting canceled. I mean, in terms of like overall life, like I don't leave the house. I go from here to the gym back. Like I
Okay.
don't go anywhere. I don't see anyone. I'm very introverted. So, you know, like I can literally go weeks without leaving my house and not notice it. Whereas Sammy, if she's inside until like 3, she'll literally go out on the porch and just sit in the sun.
Just
Like she
needs
doesn't
to.
have to go anywhere, but she's like, no, I need sunlight. And I'm like,
Okay.
oh, that's weird.
You're like, I can sit
uh,
inside all day. I'm fine.
exactly. Yeah, you know, I have a great home gym set up. So I wasn't really affected too much. You know, there was a couple sponsors that, you know, started struggling and, you know, either pulled their contract last minute before we signed it, or, you know, there were quite a few people in the space that, you know, had sponsors terminate their contracts. They used the act of God clause
Oh,
to
wow.
terminate contracts. And it was like, are you serious? Like we're like 4 days into a pandemic.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, it happened. I know multiple athletes that,
Oh,
and
wow. Yeah. I mean, what
yeah,
can you
so I mean,
do? Wow. That's crazy.
it was kind of a side effect that no one saw coming of, you know,
Yeah.
if this sponsor only sells in retail stores, they have no online platform at all. And then this pandemic hits, well, no one's going to the mall to go buy that product.
No.
And so they're just like, boom, cut all their athletes.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's crazy. I was curious of that because, like, I mean, at RX, like, obviously, like a big avenue for us for a long time was CrossFit, and
Mhm.
we've grown into a lot of places now. But I mean, that's part of our business. That, like, yeah, I mean, there's people aren't going to the gyms anymore. Even now, I mean, the gym business is just so much smaller than it was before. So luckily,
Yeah.
we've had a big online business, but yeah, businesses that weren't online definitely
Hmm.
took a hit, no doubt. So last few questions I have for you were just these are more like ending questions I like to ask athletes and founders, everyone that I have on the
Hmm.
podcast. For you, I had one different one, which was if you had to pick one, what's your favorite workout?
Favorite workout. So
Maybe
I
maybe you
don't,
can't share it, but
so I know like a handful of the girl workouts or hero workouts. I don't
okay.
know. Uh, like there have been workouts where like, uh, there's the announcement at the games where Dave is like,
Oh,
all right, workout 4 is Amanda. And everyone's like, oh, and I'm just still sitting there playing favorites like,
what's Amanda?
what does that mean? I don't know what that, you know,
Oh, that's
yeah, so
funny.
I don't really know any of those. You know, I have grown to love the concept to rower and bike erg.
Okay.
You know, the rower specifically, because I was so terrible at it and I hated it so much. Like it was my weakest thing. Like when I started CrossFit, you know, I was still smoking. I had no cardio.
Oh,
And so
really?
anything cardio based, it just like, I hated it.
Okay.
Um, and the rower was the worst of the worst for me. So, you know, looking at it as a side hustle, I was like, if I want to make that money on the weekend, I need to get better at this thing. And I think I did a full year or close to it of between 4 and 5,000 meters a day.
Oh,
Where
wow.
I was like,
Okay.
I'm terrible at this.
For time,
I'm,
you're just going straight for time.
I would break it up differently. Some
Okay.
days I would do like 5,000 meters straight. And then I remember one day I had the bright idea of doing it all in 100-meter sprints.
Oh, that
So
sounds fun.
like every minute on the minute for 40 minutes, 100 meters as hard as so you know you're getting 10 pulls. It's like 18 seconds or 20 seconds worth of effort,
Right.
but all out sprint. But yeah, breaking it
That's a
up
tough
between
one.
500s, thousands, whatever it was. And that's when I realized like, all right, you rarely hate something you're good at. So I'm going to hammer this thing until I get so good at it that I enjoy it.
Oh, love
And,
that.
and so it was like, you know, I always did like extra work in the back room. But then I would always jump in on the class workout of the day. And I was like, I'm going to do this until I'm excited to see rowing come up in a Metcon.
Ah,
And then
okay.
that's when I started realizing, oh, okay, I'm happy to see 1,000-meter row come up at the start of a workout. That probably means I've gotten better at rowing. And
Right.
so I
Yeah.
started applying that to other things. But, you know, I've put in millions of meters on the rower.
That's
Um,
wild.
and then also on top of that, you know, add insult to injury of just not being good at cardio. I'm also relatively short and wide. So it's like, you know, that's just adding insult to injury on the rower. So
That's cool though. I mean, you made
I've
like
always
your
had a,
worst thing into a strength now.
yeah. I mean, strength, like it's relative.
I
You
mean,
know,
you
I
did
can,
well. You did well in the marathon row.
yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
that probably
Like,
paid off just right there in
I
one
mean,
event.
yeah, like that for a marathon row. I think I was top 10 in
Yeah, I
that
think you were.
or close to whatever it was. But I
Yeah, I
mean,
think you were seventh or eighth.
yeah, I mean, the fact that I didn't come in the bottom 10
Sure.
was, I looked at that like, dude, I'm like the shortest guy out here, and I held my own, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah.
No, that's awesome. Okay, cool. Rowing. Love it. Good answer. Um, this one I thought would be a cool one to ask you. So you kind of fell into CrossFit. And now obviously you're very well known in CrossFit and you compete in CrossFit. Do you think you will always do CrossFit? Or like, do you love it enough now that you think it'll always be the way you train?
Um, Long term, yes, some form of it. I think probably once I'm done competing, I'll probably take a step away for a little bit. You know, I do that every year. You know, after the games, like I don't even think about doing a workout for like a month or two. You
Oh,
know,
okay.
I eat like garbage. I sleep like garbage intentionally. Of like
Probably
I want to
need
put
that.
my you know, the first couple weeks is so enjoyable. Oh,
Oh, I bet.
staying up until 4 a.m, binge watching Netflix and just eating Danishes. Oh, what's not to love?
Yeah, right.
Um, but then, you know, after a couple weeks, you know, when, you know, your body composition starts going to going in the dumps and, you know, you start feeling like you look and you're just tired all the time. And I intentionally, I'm like, no, you need to do this. Like, I want to get myself to a spot where I want to go back into the gym.
Got it.
Whereas
Okay.
like if you just train full tilt all year, your diet is dialed into the T all year, you're going to get burnt out. You need to give yourself a break and enjoy yourself. Um, and so I do that every year of like stepping away. And then even my first couple of days back, I remember one year I was struggling so much to go back to the gym to start, or I was struggling so much to start training again that I told myself, all right, first day, go to the gym.
Yeah.
I don't have to work out. Go into the gym and talk to your friends. So I like went into the back
Baby
room and
steps.
I'm still wearing like jeans and a hoodie. And like I'm just hanging out. My buddies are like, "Oh, you're gonna change?" I'm like, "No, oh, I'm not working out. I was just getting in the routine of coming here." And
That's
then like the
funny.
next couple of days, it was like, just do a couple sets of bench press. Like you don't need to breathe hard. Do a couple sets of bench press, a few pull-ups, and then dip out.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, just getting myself back into the routine. So I'm sure once I'm done competing, I'll probably take a little while. Just basically allowing myself to not sit on an assault bike or a rower and like feel like your lungs are bleeding. It's
Yeah.
like,
Right.
just start working out for pleasure of just like, yeah, it's okay to do strict press and curls and tricep
I was gonna
extensions.
say, yeah,
Like,
like maybe
just
some more
like,
bodybuilding type stuff or something
yeah,
different.
I talked about it not too long ago of like, I think it would be fun to try to look fit for a
Yeah.
while.
Except I don't know. I thought it was funny. I heard you say that, and I'm like, if you look fit now. I mean, you're top end CrossFit
I mean,
athlete, but
like
you
if
mean
I'm,
like try to be like a bodybuilder type of
I'm,
look.
I mean, like if I'm in a crowd, I think, yes, I look fit compared to like the average person, but it's like when you line up next to like, are you familiar with like Adrian Moonweiler?
Yeah. Yes.
I mean, Adrian Moonweiler or Noah Olson, like you stand next to those dudes and I'm like, oh my God, like what are you guys eating?
Yeah. Just
You guys are just
shredded.
shredded.
Yeah.
And then like I have like a little spare tire. Like I'm not counting macros. I'm not worried about my body fat composition, anything. So I think it'd be cool like to see how fit I could look.
Oh yeah. No, that makes
I've
sense.
trained to be strong, like with Olympic weightlifting. I trained to be strong, but not look strong.
Sure.
With CrossFit, I train to be fit. I don't care how I look as long as I am. So I think it would be like a fun experiment, take like a year and just like, egg whites, turkey, and water,
Yeah.
and
Hell
just
yeah. Just see what you can do
let's see
with
what I
no
can make this.
pressure, right? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. No pressure. That's awesome, man. No, love that. That's cool. Last couple questions. Favorite book? Do you have a favorite book you'd tell people to read?
Um, I I have a couple. So reading for pleasure is a whole new thing for me. Just in the last couple years. Uh, I think the first book that I read that I finally understood what people meant when they're like, I can't put this thing down,
Yeah.
was Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell.
Oh, okay. I have not read it, but I've
Uh,
heard of that.
yeah, like just loved it. And then I know another one that was a suggestion to me was the little book on common sense investing.
Okay.
I think for anyone who has any interest in saving or starting investing anything, you have to read that book. It's
That's a
just a
good.
very, very simple, breaks stuff down into very layman terms. But the big thing is it shows the power of investing now instead of tomorrow. Compound interest is the eighth wonder of the world. So I mean, it breaks it down. Like you don't need to have a math background. You don't need to know anything about investing. When you read that, it's like, holy shit, I should have started this yesterday.
Oh, that's great. I mean, that's like that's like what this podcast is. That's what it started with, was mostly
Mm-hmm.
that kind of stuff. So I'll definitely have to read that. I haven't read that one yet.
Yeah. I mean, if you know anything about investing, it's very entry level. I mean, it was the
Okay.
book that when I wanted to learn something so that when I'm talking to my investor, I
Yeah.
know what the hell he's talking about. My friend suggested that book and he was like, all right, step number one, read this. So yeah, very, very powerful from that. I made some changes in my investments after that.
Okay. Yeah.
And then the one I'm reading right now is, oh God, I forget the title of it, but it has to do with options of just like exactly what I was talking about before. Of like, I have a very hard time if I have 1,000 options in front of me picking the best one. Whereas like if there's two, I'm like, yeah, even if it's a less ideal situation, it's much easier for me to make a decision when there's less options.
So this is just more of a like a prioritization
Yeah.
manual book type thing.
Yeah. And I mean, like
That's something
before,
I need. I'm the same way.
like I've talked to Sammy about this all the time. Of like, before when I was broke and I'm living in my parents' basement, it was like this dingy 400 square foot apartment. Like when there was no other option, I've never been happier than when I lived in that terrible, shitty apartment. But now that I have the income and the resources to buy whatever house I want, and now I'm thinking like, well, is 4 bedrooms enough?
Yeah.
Like maybe I need 5. And it's like, dude, 2 years ago you were living in a 1 bedroom and like
Yeah.
it barely fit a bed. Like, and you couldn't have been happier. Like you made it
Sure.
work. Why do you feel like you need more just because you can have more? So I mean, that book is basically just that, you know.
Okay. Yeah, that's great. You remember the name of it? It's all right if you don't. I was just curious.
Yeah, but it was a book. I was kind of explaining that scenario to Eric, the guy who just bought CrossFit.
Yeah.
And he said like, oh, you need this book.
Oh, okay.
And it was just like, I'm sitting at the dinner table. I just like Amazon primed it, had it the next day.
Right.
Yeah. I'm terrible with names.
No,
So.
that's fine. No, I mean, I can find it. That's awesome though. No, I appreciate it, Matt. So this has been great. I think really my last question was going to be, since this was really based around, trying to turn CrossFit into a career, for the listeners and trying to understand the background of that. What would be your one piece of advice if you were someone who wants to try to compete in CrossFit and make it a career for themselves?
Oh boy. I mean, a couple things. First, make sure you love it. Make sure that even if you're not getting paid for it, you still want to do it. Like that was the thing I talked about. Like even before I was getting paid to do it, it was like my top priority. As soon as I got everything that I had to get done, that's what I wanted to do. I mean, it's the same in any business. Like if you're going to make it your life, make sure you enjoy it. Make sure like it's your passion. After that, technique. I mean, I couldn't tell you how many guys that I see all the time that I look at them, I'm like, you are way more physically capable than me, but you just don't have the efficiency. You don't have the movement. You don't have the technique for it.
Ah,
And so for every rep you do, like I'm spending 1 point of energy, but you're spending 1.5.
got it. Okay. Do you think you got a lot of that from the Olympic weightlifting?
All of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But then also, I mean, even the stuff that didn't have to do with weightlifting, like rowing, I saw that I wasn't good at it. So I went to someone that was,
Oh,
and I mean, so many things I've done in the space with my movements it was just always taking 1 step backwards, take 2 steps forward. And, learning the new technique on the rower, it feels so unnatural and you feel so weak in the positions right off the bat that, yeah, I could get the instant gratification of going back to my old technique and shaving a couple seconds off my paces. Or I know like in a year, this technique will be better. And I just don't see many people doing that. I don't see many people willing to give up that instant gratification to have long-term success.
got it. Okay. Yeah. People chasing faster times, heavier weight,
Exactly.
not technique.
I mean, and yeah, I mean, and get a coach that isn't fibbing the resume.
Okay.
I mean, if the coach has to tell you how good they are, probably not.
Probably not good.
Find someone like that. Their accolades are real.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of hard to describe how to go into it, but I mean, like usually coaches that have good athletes are good coaches.
Okay. That's fair.
I mean, you just see so many that, they do nothing but just toot their own horn. And it's like, oh, who's your athlete? And it's like, oh, I don't have any. And it's like, oh,
Like, that
is that not a red flag?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think, but I mean, the technique is just so big on, movement efficiency, but then injury prevention. If you want to have a lasting career in the sport, you need to move efficiently and safely.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think, make sure you're passionate about it. I mean, if you're going into it chasing the money, like, it's probably not a good motivator.
Yeah.
You need to make sure you're passionate about it and then be willing to spend a lot of time being humbled.
Okay.
Just
Oh, that's a good one.
stepping back and learning. I was like, I've had situations where I'm like 3-4 years into competing at the games and like being a podium athlete multiple times, and then hitting someone up and being like, hey, I have no fucking idea how to do this, and you're one of the best in the world at it. Can you teach me?
Oh, that's cool.
And even and not even going to one of the best in the world, of like, hey, you're a middle school track coach. Can you teach me how to sprint? And
Oh, there you go.
like I did, like, I think it was probably like 2 months of, he was coaching another middle school girl. And I mean, she's like 6th grade, and it's just her and I, like behind his gym, just like Polakowski, this
That is
like middle
funny.
schooler, and myself
Yeah.
doing track practice together, and then showing up to the middle school track practice where there's 100 kids between 6th and 8th grade. And I'm like, yeah, sure. I'm one of the top CrossFitters in the world, but I don't know how to sprint. So
I
I'm
think is that
here.
it's probably one of the cooler things about CrossFit too, is just that, it's just a combination of so many different sports that you can always improve something in the space.
Always. Oh, it's
That's so cool about it.
infuriating. I mean, it's
Yeah, I'm sure.
amazing, but it's infuriating. Um, because it's like, all right, good. I figured out how to do Olympic weightlifting. All right. You any good at powerlifting? It's damn it.
Shit. Yeah.
Are you any good at strongman? Damn it.
Yeah,
There's just
exactly.
so many things. And it's like the amount of times that I meet someone and, like they'll smoke me in one workout, and then, like they're strutting around, and I'm like, buddy, oh,
You
that
did
was
you
one.
one workout.
Yeah,
Yep.
exactly. Yeah. So yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, thank you, Matt. I appreciate you so much for coming back on. I know this is kind of a pain in the ass to go
Oh
round
no,
two.
absolutely. I love stuff like this.
Yeah, this was a blast. We didn't even really get into I didn't into the investing piece, but maybe we'll have another episode someday. We
Yeah,
can
isn't
get
that what your
that.
podcast is?
I know, I know.
I got my whole portfolio laid out here.
I'm more than happy to dive into any of it if you have the time. It's I'll ask you one question. What is your, like, if you had to just tell elevator pitch on like where you sit now, like what's your investing look like? What do what's your strategy? How involved are you? Do you do it? Do you have someone else do it? That kind of stuff.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm very, very involved, like daily basis, just checking the tickers. And I try not to move stuff around.
Okay.
It's kind of, like the Warren Buffett of like, sit there, do nothing.
Yeah,
And
right.
but yeah, I rarely do any like day trading. It's just like I try to find stuff that, has good value. Try not to ride the media waves of like, oh, this company's going huge, and then poof,
Yeah.
crash. But yeah, I'm at the point where, and I have no interest in like trying to double my money in the year. It's like
Okay. You have no
right
like.
now, I'm like, okay, I got enough to live my life for the rest of my life.
Okay. Oh, there you go. Hell
So
yeah.
it's like just trying to capture the market growth. Right now, I'm trying to stay out of anything with the dividend or interest or anything.
Oh, are you just trying to stay in high
Yeah,
growth stuff?
like right now, it's like my income's still high because I'm still active with sponsors and prize money and stuff like that.
Right.
So it's like there's no need to add anything to the realized gain and
Got
pay
it.
more taxes.
Okay.
So yeah, I try to stay away from anything that pays like a good chunk of a dividend. But I mean, like I had my first like hands-on experience, like when was it, March, when the big crash
Yeah.
was?
Yep. Yep.
And
Middle of March.
I've always kept like a good pile of cash off to the side.
Okay.
And like whenever I would have to talk to someone at Vanguard, they would say like, hey, you should really invest this money. And I'm like, well, no, like, the S&P is at like record breaking highs. Why would I invest it now? And it's
Okay.
like, they say, don't try to time the market. Don't try. I'm like, all
Timing
right,
the
well,
market's more important than timing the market. Yep.
I'm like, when it's at record breaking highs and I'm about to invest this much, I'm going to time the market a little bit. And then, and I always say, the S&P just takes a crash. Just let it come down to like 240, 250 for like a week. And then we sink all this money in. And then March rolled around. And then every day, just boom, 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 boom.
Oh,
Just
so brutal.
every day going down. And the first day, I'm like, let me buy a little bit. And then I'm like, I'm going to buy this thing the whole way down.
Oh, it's smart, man. Yeah.
every day I'm going to put money in. And then around day 6 or 7, the price is still going down,
Yeah.
and I'm like still buying. That was the first time where I actually put my money where my mouth was, of like buying into a down market.
There you
And
go. Oh, good for you. So
and
you actually are very versed in this. This is
I mean,
enough. I mean,
it
you're
got
dangerous.
scary.
Like I mean, these are like the key things that I talk about.
But then like, you know, we're now 3 months, 4 months later, whatever it is, and it's like I'm looking at that. I'm like, that's the easiest money I ever earned.
It's
But
been
I'm
crazy.
the whole way down. At the start of it, I'm like, oh, I'm putting all of it in, and then 3 days in, I'm like, oh, maybe I'll pull back a little bit, and then like 2 weeks in, it's like, okay, I think I've done enough.
Yeah.
But yeah, yeah. So
It's it
by timing the market, that's what I'm talking about. Like, I'm not going to
sure.
put all my money in at like the record breaking high.
Right.
But yeah, most of my investments are like just very non-sexy mutual funds.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah. Playing more of the long-term game.
yeah, like I have a couple like individual stocks that I'm like giddy over right now.
Oh, let's hear
Like,
them. This is important.
well, I mean, like the one that like it's a very small piece of my portfolio, but it's like just performing so bananas that
Okay.
I love it. I have a couple hundred shares of Apple that I
Okay.
got at like $150.
Nice. There you go.
And like
Great.
today it's at like 460. So every
See,
day I see that and like, oh, I'm
you're,
all giddy on it.
yeah.
But like probably like the least sexy thing you can own, and I think it's my biggest position, is Berkshire Hathaway. Um, you
There you
know,
go.
Warren Buffett. Gotta
Just
love the
backing
guy.
him. Now,
Yeah.
would you hold on to it if he retires or kicks the can? I think that's a big conversation right now.
Well, I mean, he's in his 90s, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, I mean,
Mid
that's a
90s, I think 93.
yeah. And what's his sidekick's name?
Oh,
Charles.
yeah. I was about to
Um,
say it, and then I totally blanked when you said it.
or is it Charlie? Doesn't matter. I mean, like, he and his
I
best
blanked.
buddy, they're both in their mid 90s.
Yeah, right.
Um,
I
yeah.
think
So
that's the big question for them.
I mean that. I've done some research on like who they have to like fill their shoes with if they retire, or if if they pass away or anything, and it's like they have very competent people in, but the market's emotional. If something
Yeah,
happens and it's just like that's the tide, all it takes is a couple big people to drive the price down, and then everyone starts jumping ship, and then you're kind of sitting there like, oh, what the hell? Like,
right.
the company's changed value none,
No,
but because people's attitude towards it changed, then it's fucked.
yeah, it's totally
Uh,
fucked. It's been crazy through COVID too, because so many people, I mean, you said you use Vanguard, but
yeah.
I've used a bunch of different things. Currently, most of the personal stuff I use is still I use Robinhood just because it's free
Hmm.
trading and I love the app and I've used them for a long time. It's been crazy to see the amount of people jump into Robinhood and starting to, I mean, I know
Hmm.
there's some controversy over whether people in Robinhood are actually swinging some of these stocks, but
Well, so I mean, even
it's
just
kind
from
of the
what I,
social media effect, though, right? You think about,
well, I mean, I think it's just the social media effect, but like something like Robinhood just changes the barrier of entry so
yeah,
much.
right.
Like 3 years ago, I was the only one of my buddies that did investing,
Oh, really?
and
Okay.
and then
It definitely was not like a sexy thing a couple of years ago,
no, absolutely not. And
and then
then
now it's become like a thing everyone I know talks about. It's
but
funny.
now it's like you can just download the app, and like there's no minimums or anything like that.
No,
It's just so accessible. That barrier of entry just got knocked down. So I think
I mean, even
like
like
I know
6 years ago, it used to be, not to cut you off, my bad. It's like 6 years ago, I used Scott Trade. It was like $8, $9 a trade you would
hmm
pay. So like, unless you were throwing real money around, it like sometimes it wasn't even worth it. If I'm going to buy like a couple shares and you
yeah,
right away lose $8, like, well, fuck, that's not even
yeah,
running
exactly.
numbers. You're like, it's not worth it to really trade very
Yeah, I
often.
mean, and now it's like, all right, you have $8 to buy, $8 to sell,
Yeah,
and it's like, all right, well, now you need a pretty big swing in your stock price to turn a profit.
yeah,
I know even with Vanguard, like Vanguard's known as like the cheapest platform of like the lowest commissions and all this stuff. It's very no frills. but even most of the stuff there's a $3,000 minimum.
Right.
And so a $3,000 barrier of entry, like that's not just someone that has 3,000. That's someone that can just like risk 3,000.
Big difference too, right?
Especially when they don't know what they're doing. Like Vanguard isn't a very user-friendly platform, you
Yeah.
know.
It's like
The
our
way,
parents' platform. It's like very
yeah,
old
like the
school.
way it was described to me, like I had all my money at JP Morgan for a long time, and I had someone managing it. And what was the analogy that my friend made? He was like, JP Morgan is like the top of the line where like they're gonna take you out to dinner, you know, the app is user friendly, like they're gonna wine you and dine you. And what was it, like Fidelity was like, it's kind of like your Target, you know, like yeah, there's some nice stuff,
Sure.
but it's more base model, more affordable. And then he's like, Vanguard is like your broke down Walmart. He's like, they got everything you need and it's the cheapest out there.
Oh, that's
And like
funny. I've never heard that before.
and you know that whole book, like the little book on common sense investing, like the one reoccurring thing through the entire book was like, do not pay someone 1% to manage your money.
Yeah.
Yes, 1% this year isn't very much, but when you compound it over 40 years, it like it can have like an ending value of millions of dollars difference.
Yeah. I
Um,
mean, it's why
and
these companies are so big.
yeah, so
You know,
like
it's not
that
like
was
it's not a charity. They're making money off of
yeah.
you. You know?
Yeah, and so that was why I switched over everything into Vanguard, because it was just, yeah, it's not user friendly, but once you know how to use it, it's
Then it's
perfectly
fine.
fine. It's just
Yeah.
there's no frills.
Sure.
Yeah. Um,
So you're doing some mutual funds. Are you managing much of it? Or are you having someone else manage it at Vanguard?
oh no, I do
Oh,
it
you're doing
all.
everything? Oh, there you
Yeah,
go.
like
Nice.
I have a friend. He actually runs a page called the Investment Bodyguard.
Love it.
But he was just retired young, and then just realized like I think he was kind of bored, and he had this like wealth of knowledge when it came to investing and trading and all this stuff. That you know, I hit him up, and I was like, I don't want to be a nuisance, but like, can you kind of teach me something,
Sure.
because I have no idea what's going on.
Yeah.
And I mean, he just kind of hit the ground running. Like he showed me everything, helps me all the time. I think like the first month that I was talking to him, we spoke every day, and it was almost like he would like give me homework assignments of resources of like, all right, read this book, read this article, watch this
Oh, that's
YouTube
cool.
video.
Yeah.
And I'd be watching it or reading and just taking notes of like any questions that popped up. And then I would ask him the questions, he would answer them. And but yeah, he helped me set up my Vanguard account. And even still, like, or early on, he was like, you know, I think you should, you know, invest in this, like to get a nice diversified portfolio and that type of thing. He's super knowledgeable on it, but more and more as time goes on, you know, I'm able to do more of it on my own.
Yeah.
And a lot of it was super basic of like, I would be putting in a trade and I'd be like, oh, like, do I want it at market or do I want a limit? And I have to call him like, hey, which one is it again? And so, you know, I'm nice, comfortable
Yeah.
with all that stuff now.
Well, good.
I play a little bit with selling put options.
Okay. Any
You know that
success yet or failure too? I guess both are important, really.
no, the few that I've done have turned out great.
Okay.
You know, you know, I only sold put options for stuff that I would be okay owning.
Got
You
it.
know,
Yep.
like so selling put options on SPY. So like the SPY is like Vanguard's S&P 500. It's like a replica of the S&P
Right.
500. But yeah, just you know, I'm not trying to like make a killing, and you know, I'm not putting my strike price like $3 under what it's currently at. It was like yeah, I think I did SPY at like $225 at like year and a half out.
Oh,
You know,
okay.
it's
So
just like,
longer term ones too.
yeah. And so, you know, it was just like, yeah, you get to pocket a couple grand. A lot of it was just getting familiar with, you know, just another option of
Yeah.
something to do.
Sure.
But I mean, it's kind of fun. I mean,
It's fun and it's powerful when the market's like it's a way to make money when they're not doing well.
oh my God.
So
I mean, I remember I sold those put options when the market was like way up. And I think the SPY was at 340 and I sold these puts for like 225. And it's like,
wow.
oh, this is never going to get executed. But it was like, I get to pocket like a couple grand for
Yeah.
this thing that like chaos has to hit for this contract to get executed.
Sure.
And then, I mean, my strike price is 225 and I think the market went down to like 230.
Wow.
And I was like, oh my God, like I never thought this would happen. But then I remember going in and seeing the cost per contract of what I got paid when the market was at 340 versus what the market was paying when the stock was at 230
Okay.
for a 225 strike price.
Yeah.
Dude, it was like tenfold what
really?
I had received. If you were willing, like when the market was at 230, if you were willing to sell a contract at 225, they were paying like, I forget what, like $12 a share.
Oh, wow.
For the contract. It was crazy. But I mean, it was just a great learning experience. And then on my side, if it did get executed, it wasn't money that was already promised somewhere else. It was just money that was sitting.
Sure.
So it's not the end of the world.
Yeah. And I always tell people, I've noticed in my career of trading and investing, just getting your hands dirty, trying stuff out. Like you can read all you want, you can watch YouTube videos. It all is helpful, but there's nothing like putting a contract in like that and then either it going well. I've also felt like I've had a lot of things that have gone well, but I have like a handful of really bad losses that like I just will never forget.
Oh,
It's
yeah,
funny.
they scar you.
Yeah,
They
it's like, I'm sure
you.
it's similar like for you with the games or anything else. It's like you remember the ones you lose and you like make sure you don't repeat those and you
Yeah,
change the way you do things.
I think I've had one stock. Oh, it's Boeing.
Boeing. Okay.
Boeing was
Oh,
the one that
did
I
you buy it
sold.
before they had the plane crash and all that?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
I mean,
unlucky too. It's like, what the hell? What's the
yeah.
chance? You know?
So I've always looked at, like I only buy, I don't do any penny stocks or small companies, like just like IBM, Apple,
You're like blue
Walmart.
chip.
Like, yeah, like if I'm buying an individual stock, it's the big ones.
Okay. Yeah.
And I always look at it as, I like the stock market has never taken a dollar from anyone.
Yeah.
It's, if you hang on to it long, if you can afford to hang on to it, it will come back. So anytime I've had an investment that, like you bought it and then it immediately dropped 10%, well, you only lose the money if you sell it when it's down.
Exactly.
So if you can afford to just hang on to it for, most of the time it's only a couple months, but sometimes for a couple years, odds are it's going to come back.
Definitely.
Yeah. So Boeing was one position that I was in and, it just went to shit. And it was one that it was real of, like the government just said they're not going to bail them out. There's a good chance that this is going to go to zero. And
yeah, I remember that because my dad was pretty heavy in that. And I remember we talked about it. He's like, I'm just worried they're going to go bankrupt. And then it's going to be that one company that doesn't play out like most companies do. You'll sit on it and then be screwed.
And anything like, like something like Apple or Walmart, where it's like the odds of them going bankrupt, they're so big. The odds they're going to go bankrupt
at this point,
so thin. So, like with something like that, like when it drops down 20, 30%, you're like, it's unfortunate, but I'll hang on to it for a couple of years and it'll come back. I'm playing 100%. The long-term game here.
Yeah.
Boeing was one that, all the writing was on the wall that like they really, really could go bankrupt.
Yeah.
And so, I
and that one like defies all trading, all investing knowledge. I mean, you can't control.
Yeah.
Something
like it was
that,
just like something went wrong and then it went worse and worse. So it's like I think they had the crash and then it was like travel just like came to a screeching halt. And it was like the writing was on the wall for them to go bankrupt. And so, I was talking to my buddy and he was like, hey, like I hate to say this, but like you'll have a big loss on the paper. It'll help you come tax season.
Sure.
But like this is one where you might want to grab your money.
Yeah.
And
this is probably very rare. Did you end up selling?
Yeah. I think I want to say, was it like in the 30s, $30 a share.
Okay.
And then it was like, of course, like, it's off my memory. I've just come to terms with this loss. And
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
like down the road, it's like Bowen's back up at 100. I'm like, son of a bitch. But
Most
I think that was
common thing to
I think
say in
that was the
investing, I think.
only one that I've taken a loss on, like a big loss.
Yeah. That's
But
good. I mean, that's one. I mean, that's like, again, that's like a weird one. That's not like like an investment philosophy that, something that you learned a hard lesson on. So that's good.
yeah, I mean, like when I transferred over my portfolio from JP Morgan, like that was a lot of individual stocks. And that just isn't really my play. Like it's not really what I'm going for.
Yeah.
So if they were up and it was already a long-term position, I would get out of those. A lot of them, if it was still in a short-term position, I would hang on to it till it became long-term and get
There you
out of
go.
it. And then if it was down, I would hang on to it until just like one day it was back up in the green and then get rid of it. So
And
I
then
think
sell it.
I maybe own like 5 individual stocks right now, but
Okay. So
then
it's very heavy mutual funds.
yeah,
Yeah.
I
I mean,
just have just try to grab like a good chunk of each sector.
that's like the long-term growth strategy that I hear a lot of professionals say. I know like a guy like someone like Dave Ramsey is a huge fan of that, of
Mhm.
just like not getting too into the weeds of individual stocks. What's been interesting, I think, is during COVID, it's been like the first time where I've had just like a handful, just like two parts. One, blow up for really no reason, defies all logic. And then
Mhm.
two, it's like long term, I'm with you. I think that's the move, is just you just keep pumping money in, whether it's if you're
Yeah.
someone who gets paid every week or every 2 weeks, it's like you just put a set amount of money and you treat it like a savings account and
Well,
it's
I mean,
gonna
just
grow.
treat it like you don't even have the money. Treat it
Yeah.
like
It's not even
that
yours.
$200 of every paycheck doesn't exist.
Yes.
Treat it like a tax and just shovel it in. Don't time the market. Like if you have like a scheduled payment like that, don't time the market. Just
Yeah.
put it in. You'll win some, you'll lose some, but it all comes out in the end.
Right.
I mean, that's what I try
100%.
to preach. And I don't know if it's like how old are you?
I'm 28.
Okay, yeah. So yeah, I'm 30 years old, and I can't tell you how many of my friends I asked, like, hey, what type of retirement fund do you have set up? What type of, what type of investments do you have? And they're like, I'm 30. Why would I have a retirement fund?
It's so
I'm like,
scary, isn't it?
are you shitting me? I'm like, dude, retirement is coming. Like,
Yeah.
you
You
can't
hope so,
stop it.
right? You want to.
Exactly. And it's bananas to me. And then on top of it, like, the amount of people that I'm around that based off the clothes they're wearing, the cars they're driving, the jewelry they're wearing, they look like millionaires. And I see them and I'm like, I know how much money I would need to have in the bank to justify buying that truck.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, I know how much I make and I can't justify it. So I'm like, man, he must be killing it. He must be rolling in the dough.
Yeah.
And then you find out that like they have like a 6-year loan on it and they're paying like this outrageous percent and then have no retirement fund. I'm like, oh my God, like I just got stressed out for you, man.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean,
dude, like
that
you
was
need to
one of the
live below
reasons I
your
wanted
means
to,
and save.
that's one of the reasons I wanted to start this podcast and talk to people, like you, who's doing something that a lot of people see as, a wild, awesome career. And there's a whole side to it that I think is just like this. Some of this stuff should be simple and it should be well known. And it's just like not taught. I mean, you have an engineering degree. Did anyone at, your University of Vermont teach you guys some of this basic stuff?
No, so I remember the first money I invested. Um, so it was my manager, Matt O'Keefe, set me up with a mutual friend who worked at Vanguard. And he, like, I told him, I'm like, dude, like, I had all my money under a mattress. Like, I
Did you
didn't have a
really?
bank account, anything. And, uh, we had a house fire scare. So I was like, all right, I need to
Holy
get a
shit.
bank account. And then, like, I had like a good chunk of change sitting in just a checking account. And so O'Keefe was like, hey, I got a mutual friend. He does this for a living and he's great at it. I was like, cool. And when I met with him, went out for dinner, and I opened up a SEP account and a brokerage account with him
Nice.
and he was going to manage them. And I was like, well, I have no reason for this money. I'm not going to do anything with it. So I'll just give you every dollar I have. And so I think I wrote him a check for, I forget how much, but I mean, it was like, I think it was over 100,000.
Oh, wow. Okay. That was a lot of money. There you
Yeah.
go.
Like it was a good chunk of
Yeah.
change. Uh, my buddy Matt O'Keefe had to like sit over my shoulder and he had to show me how to write a check.
I mean, if you've never done it, you've
Yeah.
never done it,
I had
especially
never,
today. It's just like
I
no
had
one teaches
never
you.
written a check. No one showed me. Like, I don't have a checkbook. Why would I have a checkbook? Like, what am
Sure.
I going to balance it? No.
Yeah.
Like, there's money
Right.
coming in, money going out,
Right.
Um,
No, that's crazy. I mean, it's funny. I've talked about this on the podcast a few different times. I got a finance degree from a Big Ten school, and not that it's a bad program. I love the program I went to, but um, it's amazing leaving. I remember leaving school. My parents helped me pay for part of college, but I didn't even know like what my student loan amount was going to be when I got out.
Mhm.
Then all of a sudden, you're looking for a job and you land a job and you have a salary and you're like, well, shit, how much is my student loans going to take away from my paycheck? Like they don't teach you any of this. And then when you get out and you have to, like, I need a new car. I didn't have to get a new car, but like I
Yeah.
needed a car. And so they're like, well, fuck, how much of my paycheck should go to this? Like
Yeah.
these are like simple things that like none of us are taught. It's like
Dude,
people kind of stumble through and figure it out.
the rudest awakening I ever had was being self-employed. Like
Okay.
technically I'm like self-employed. I'm an independent contractor,
Okay.
whether it's
Yeah.
for sponsors, competitions, anything. Like they don't withhold your taxes.
Ah,
You are
yes.
responsible for that.
Good old tax return time came
The
around.
first time that I came to that realization,
Yeah.
I remember so I had been paying in quarterly and like your estimates, like your
Yeah.
quarterly estimates, and then come end of year or like early April, and I'm talking to the accountant, and he's like, "All right, you owe this amount," and I was like, "Yeah, totally. I already paid it, man. We paid him quarterly, remember?" And he's like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah. You owe this much more."
Oh, fuck.
And I had come to terms with like looking at my checking account and seeing that number, and I'm like, "That's mine. I
Yeah.
earned that, and it's mine. I've already paid my taxes. I've already paid all my expenses. Like
Right.
I get to make plans for that money." And then it was like, I mean, it was over half
That's
of it
crazy.
that he was like, "No, you need to make one more check." And I remember he told me that, and I asked him like 10 different ways. I'm like, "So on this money that I already paid, I owe this much more." I asked him like 3, 4 different ways to make sure I
Wow.
wasn't mistaken.
Yeah.
And he was like, "Yes, you owe that." And I remember just like Gronkowski spiking my phone on the floor and just sitting on the couch like you see in a sitcom, hands over my face and just sobbing
It's like gut
of
wrenching. I mean, paying
just
taxes sucks.
it
Just
was
sucks.
I just wept.
Yeah.
That's all I
You're
did.
like, that's my money.
Yeah,
Well,
exactly. I'm like,
especially
"I'm
you. I
paying
mean,
Rob."
you were
Uh,
paying it out quarterly, or you thought you were. So you
yeah.
were,
Yeah. So yeah,
So
there's
how do you plan? How do you do that now? I'm just totally curious. So like, do your accountant try to do a different way of making,
I
like,
mean,
setting
so
aside
that
money?
was like that was like my first year paying taxes. So
Okay.
like we were like, yeah, you have to make estimates, and when you're not basing it off anything, it's like you basically just have to wing it, and
Yeah.
you're forced to overpay so you don't get penalized.
Right.
So now what is it? You have to either pay 90% or no, you have to pay 110% of last year's taxes or 90% of your predicted taxes.
Okay.
It's between 90 and 110%. So I mean, now it's like I've had the same sponsors for a long time. And I've changed the way I structure a lot of my contracts. Before, I got heavily incentivized to compete
Oh.
because
Okay.
no sponsors were willing to. I didn't have a good track record. I didn't have any record, so
Yeah.
they're like, "Well, no, we're not going to pay you, X amount per month, no matter what." It's like, we'll pay you that amount if you win a competition, but unless you
Oh,
perform, we're not going to pay you because I had no
gotcha.
track record to like have, I don't know, like a resume, I guess.
Yeah.
And so it's like, if I didn't compete throughout the year, my income was zero. But if I competed, it was like the prize money, and then like I got boatloads of incentives.
Okay. Yeah.
So now I changed it around a lot more because I'm able to of like, no, I want more of it guaranteed.
That's smart.
Because sponsors know I'm going to compete. I'm going to compete consistently.
Right.
So there's more trust there. So I'm able to predict my salary throughout the year a lot easier.
That's gotta be even the, I mean, like, I don't know how much of this is obviously into like the total, but I mean, like winning the games versus not, like if you didn't make the games, that's a big swing though, I would think.
From the game's prize money, yeah, I mean, 300 grand is 300 grand.
Yeah.
From the incentives set up from sponsors, yeah, it swings my,
That's wild.
salary a
Yeah.
lot.
Yeah. Right.
So I mean, like when I'm talking to my accountant, he's like, "Hey, like what do you think your income is going to be?" And I'm like, "It can be anywhere from this to this," and it's like literally triple
Right.
if I perform well to not performing.
Sure. Oh
So
yeah. No, it's cool. Investing and all the money things. It's funny. It does remind me some ways of CrossFit where it's like you have your super high end performers in investing and
yeah,
like wealth building. But like nowadays, anyone can do it. Like anyone, you can have $5 and get on Robinhood, and with partial shares, you can buy 10 companies with $5
yeah,
and have like 0.001 share of Amazon and start your investing and just
yeah.
keep pumping it in. It's
I
the
mean,
coolest
I'm
thing.
surprised it took this long for something like Robinhood to come around.
I am too. Yeah.
Um, because like I mean, I think Amazon is like, I mean,
Amazon.
Apple's $460. Tesla, to buy one share of Tesla, you need $1,621.
I was gonna tell you that's been my
Like,
biggest so I got in on Tesla at $200.
oh,
$200. Everyone always says like you don't buy enough, but $200 today ended the day at 1635 and they announced they're doing a 5-to-1 split.
really?
So
Yeah, Apple's. I think at the end of the month, it's doing a 4-to-1 split.
some of those guys that it's the like Amazon, Apple, Tesla's, they just had an unbelievable couple months out of COVID.
But,
I mean, it's just
I mean, Tesla's one that I don't understand.
yeah.
I think it's one of those ones that like it's just like, you know, it's the sexy thing right now. It's Elon Musk is like everyone knows who he is. He's a
Yeah.
personality.
He's a personality, yeah.
But I mean, what was that I heard the other day? It was like Tesla's market cap value is appraised at more than the entire car industry combined.
Yeah, it
And
doesn't
it's
make any
like,
sense.
well, that's
It's
not real.
and that's the problem that I'm foreseeing now is like we're going into the stage of it's going down luckily, but still like extremely high unemployment. A lot
Mhm.
of these industries are getting smoked by COVID still. Like that hasn't changed yet.
Yeah.
The market and these companies' valuations continue to just explode. And it's
Mhm.
like something's got to give. I mean, there's this. I haven't talked much about it on here, but I don't know if you've looked into much of this. But there's this whole thing that's going on with the quantitative easing, which is the government basically is
Mhm.
printing money and they're investing it in the markets to help these companies. But it's like, hold on, where the fuck does that money come from? You can't just they're literally printing money.
Oh yeah.
So what happened? Like that's just fake. It's just
Yeah,
so what is the
it
end
just makes
result
your
of that?
dollar it just makes your dollar worth less.
Yeah. So it's
Yeah.
like I don't know. There's so much weird shit going on this year in the markets and investing and just how all this is going to fall out. I'm very interested to see what happens, but
I mean, interested, scared.
scared. Yeah.
I mean,
Both.
I really like, when like March hit and like all the shutdowns happened, it's like, yeah, my account took a hit,
Yeah.
but it was less than the regular market fall.
Oh, that's
You
good.
know,
Then that's all that really matters, right? You're outpacing
yeah, I
the
mean,
general market. That
I
means
mean,
you're in good stuff.
it still
It
hurts
still hurts. It
when
always,
you
yeah. I
see it
mean,
drop
that's
like that.
hopefully though. I mean, that kind of drop really should be once in a. Well, I don't want to say once in a lifetime, but it really
Dude,
should. I mean,
like
it's crazy
my
because
track record with investing, like when it was at JP Morgan, I felt like it was all the time. Like I would get a call, and anytime I saw his name pop up on the phone, it was like, fucking A, why are you calling
you're
me?
like, what'd you
Because
do wrong, man?
you're only calling me, like he's required to call all his clients like if the market dropped 10% or if he lost 10%.
Oh, really? I
Luckily
didn't know that's
I
how that
never
worked.
like lost 10%, but it was just like the
Here's an
account
FYI.
value dropped 10%, and he's like, get the call, hey Matt, like don't worry. And like it's just the market's in a dip. It's
Yeah.
fine.
Right.
But yeah, I just felt like it was happening all the time. It's been like the last year was the first time that it's like been more consistent, and then March hit.
Yeah.
And, but it was like information for me builds comfort.
Okay. Yeah, sure.
Whereas before I remember, uh, like I got the call that my account value went down 10%. And I mean, it was a good chunk. And I got off the call just like devastated, because I'm like, I don't know if the market actually took a dip. Did he make a reckless investment and
Yeah.
lost the money? Did he steal the money? Like
Yeah.
I don't
Like,
know.
where did
I
my
don't
money
know.
go?
I don't know how to read these spreadsheets. I don't know how to,
Yeah.
like, whatever he tells
You
me,
and I
that's
would
all
do the
I
same
know.
thing. I had the same thing, and that's why I pulled everything out and do it on my own now.
Yeah.
I hated not
And
knowing and needing to get an email or a call or a monthly update on my portfolio.
yeah. And so I remember like the amount that my account went down. I mean, this is like 3 years ago that I remember I got that call, and I was devastated. Um, this last March, the dip down that I had was 5 times that amount,
Oh, wow.
like 5 times bigger of a dip. But because I knew, okay, COVID, everything shut down, all these companies can't get their products in.
Right.
I was aware of what the reason was. And I knew like back then I was like, I just lost all of that. But
Yeah.
now I know it's like, I didn't lose anything. It's just deflated a bit.
Yeah.
Um, so instead of being sad, I'm like, I'm giddy. I'm so excited, because I'm like, I, I, I believe and I trust that all these companies are going to come back in value. So I was throwing money at them. I
It's
was buying up shares
That's
left
great.
and right. Like the one I stuck to was SPY, so the S&P
Okay.
500 in
Which is
Vanguard.
smart. Yeah.
I bought it all. Like, and because I had faith, and I had the information that built comfort for me.
Yeah.
And so every day when I woke up and it's like the market's down more, more, more. And then once I was done investing, it was like, okay, time to grow.
Yeah.
And
Right.
that's when you just cross fingers. And yeah, like there are some, I don't want to say sleepless nights, but yeah, like you second guess yourself when
Sure. Oh, yeah. I mean,
the whole downturn is lasting longer.
right.
I look at that, like just those S&P 500 purchases now, and I'm just like giggling of like, oh my God, that was so easy. And it was because I just kept a pile of cash sitting, just
Yeah.
dry powder, just waiting for that moment.
Yeah. You
So
know what? Before COVID, I'll be honest, I was always the one thinking like, if I have cash sitting there, and maybe it's more because of Robinhood. Robinhood, you can like get it out and back into your bank in a day and a half, 2 days.
mhm,
So I've always treated it as like almost like another savings account.
yep.
But with COVID, I think it was for me, and maybe because we're younger, I hadn't had like a moment like that where like, I don't know, we have a mortgage now and we have, a car, and not a ton of stuff, but like enough where like grown ups enough where like, yeah, we have things we got to pay for.
Yeah.
And I think for me, it was like a moment of like, shit, yeah, like the end of the day, cash is king. It's like,
Mhm,
if you don't have cash to pay for stuff, you have nothing.
yeah.
So I know for me now, it's been an interesting balance of like making sure there is some there, and it can be treated as like a safety net, or to your
Mhm,
point, it's what's the best use for it can just be when something like this happens again, hopefully nothing this bad, but like really they're buying opportunities. And the people that, if you look back at March and you look at like the stock market, if you even look back over the last couple of decades, it was probably the biggest transfer of wealth we've seen in the markets
oh my
possibly
God.
ever. I mean,
Yeah.
the amount of money people lost and sold,
Yeah.
and then other people who were ready to buy bought at
Like the
super low
stock market
prices.
has never taken a dollar from
No,
anybody.
man, just switched hands.
And the way I look at it too is like, I anything I buy, I'm not, unless the company goes to zero, I'm not going to lose money on this,
Right.
because I don't need this money for decades.
Sure. Yeah.
All the money in my Vanguard account is money that I don't need to touch until I'm like 70.
Yeah.
You know,
And
like
that's
I
powerful.
have I have a couple different layers of what I do with my money. Like I have cash in my house. Like just
Yep.
it's not a ton,
Literally
but it's
just in a
like,
safe or whatever.
yep, in a fireproof bag, in a safe. And it's like
It's like if zombies come out
if
and
if
we're
the banks if the banks for whatever reason had a glitch for a week,
Yep.
it's like I can still buy gas and groceries and
Right.
utility, whatever. And then I have like my checking account that's just a little more convenient for tracking expenses.
Yeah.
And then all the money in my Vanguard account is stuff that I'm like, from my checking account, I could live off that for years,
Yeah.
for like very frugally, for years. The money in my house, I could live off for like a month, maybe.
Okay.
Um,
That's
but
good though. You got a balance. You have a plan.
but then the money in my Vanguard is like, I don't need this. Like I don't have a mortgage. I don't have a car payment. Um, so it's like my expenses are really, really low.
Yeah.
Um, so
That's
yeah,
awesome.
all the
Good
money
for
in
you
my
guys.
Vanguard
Yeah.
account. So it's like the cash sitting in the money market account, that's just waiting for that golden opportunity of the
Right.
market just to take a, I mean, in the grand scheme of things, that dip we had was like so short lived. We're already almost
Yeah.
back to
Yeah. I
full.
mean, we're past it
Yeah.
actually. I
Um,
think both, yeah, the Nasdaq and the S&P are back over
yeah.
they were
So I mean,
before, which
like
is crazy.
in the moment, yes, it was terrifying, but in the grand scheme of things, it was like terrifying for a month. And it's just like, you got to put your money where your mouth is. Like
Right.
you said,
Yeah.
you're going to buy, you're going to sink all your cash into that. When
Yeah.
it crashed, well, here's your chance.
Yes.
Um, so
Nope.
yeah, I
I
mean,
totally agree. It's, for me, I was funny. I remember being like, I wanted a little bit more in cash. I wanted literally the same thing you did. I wanted like,
mhm.
I remember when COVID hit, everything was crazy. People were like stocking up food and like, it was just
Yeah,
nuts. I remember being like, you know what? I'm just going to pull some out. I'm going to put it in cash, just extra cash, just like,
yeah.
just why not? And it's like probably in the entire, I've been investing for 6 to 7 years now consistently, and it's by far the biggest mistake. Hindsight's 2020, but I've ever made is like, fuck, should have just left it all in. Would have been
Oh yeah.
fine.
Oh
We were
yeah.
fine with where we were in cash. It's just I just felt like I needed to do it, but it's a good lesson learned. It's like most likely we won't see another dip like that ever happen again. Hopefully,
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
bad,
Fingers crossed,
that quick. Yeah, you know what
Yeah.
I mean? Like it's this crazy thing. So, good lesson learned though of like how not to handle it. And, I'd rather
Yeah.
learn that lesson at 28 versus,
Yeah.
65.
Yeah. Like when you're looking at retirement and
Yeah.
then
You're
you're
like,
like,
shit, I got to pull it
oh
all now.
shit.
And then 2 months later, you're like, fuck, that would have been back to where it was or higher.
Yeah.
So, it could be a lot worse.
Yeah.
Do you have any apps or tools you like to use for your investing, or do you just use Vanguard pretty much?
Yeah, I just use Vanguard. I think the biggest tool is just talking to people.
Yeah.
It's the same for me. Like I look at it as just another thing that I'm training for.
Sure.
I'm trying to learn. Like I remember when I had to get better at running. I'm like, I don't know how to do running progressions or learn how to run better. So I linked up with Chris Henshaw. When I had to learn how to deadlift, I'm like, I don't know how to train deadlifting. So
Right.
I looked up like the world champion deadlifter and learned from them. So the same thing with investing. Of like, well, I don't know how to learn about investing. I don't know where to go.
That's tough.
Also, ask someone who does.
Exactly.
And I think it's surprising. Like talking about money has almost like this bad rap of it's this thing that like, oh no, you don't talk about that.
Right.
I remember like I'm always like, why the fuck would you not talk about it?
That's what everyone cares about the
And
most, which is funny.
it's well, I think the big reason why it's like not polite is because so many people put up a facade of I have this amount, but
Yeah.
really they're in debt up to their eyeballs, and so then
Yep.
that makes it like unpolite to talk about.
100%.
So I mean, I try to talk to anyone and everyone I can. I've started. I found to make it easier when I meet someone that I see their lifestyle or see how they conduct themselves, and I'm like, okay, that's something that I like. That's something that I value.
Okay.
I try to ask them, what do you do for investing? How much money do you spend? How much do you earn versus all these things? And I found the way to kind of make it easier or a little more polite is asking, just tell me percentages. I don't
Oh,
need to know
yeah.
numbers.
Yep.
Like, how much money do you make before taxes? It's like, okay, they like pump your brakes.
Sure.
But, I remember talking to a friend who's very successful in the CrossFit space. And I was like, how much money do you spend on stuff that makes you smile? Like stuff that you're going to get no value from. It's going to depreciate, like a meal, a vacation, all this stuff.
Yeah.
And I was like, just tell me percentages. I don't want to know. And,
That's a good way to think about it.
he's telling me, he's like, oh, I spend between 10 and 12% of my annual salary on stuff that I know I'm going to get no return off of. I save long-term 40%, this much goes to my cars and my house. And I found, and then if, obviously if they want to open up with actual numbers, well, that's up to them then,
Sure. Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely.
But I mean, like coming out of college, I got a double major, double minor. Like I'm well educated.
Yeah.
I've got lots of real world application. I didn't even know how to write a fucking check.
Yeah, that's crazy, right?
And like that's not uncommon.
No, that's actually, you're probably in the norm, right?
And so like I remember like after doing some research and reading and just learning on my own, and kind of telling my parents about it, and then I remember like one time my dad asked me, he's like, hey, like what do you think about this investment? Or like I was like, wait, why are you asking me? Like I'm supposed to be coming to you for advice. And he's like, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. I'm like, oh my God, like why is this not discussed?
Yeah.
And,
no, but this is powerful. Like this, like just having this dialogue and this conversation, like just
well,
rarely happens around investing.
I think if Robinhood, like that app, I look at it as its biggest contribution is just getting it into people's houses,
Yeah.
getting that conversation started, getting that barrier of entry knocked down, because now you don't need a $3,000 minimum. And like, where do you go to start an investment thing? Like,
Yeah.
I had an account at JP Morgan. I had never even heard of Vanguard. I didn't know what it was. Like why is that not a common household name?
Sure. Oh yeah.
But Robinhood, everyone knows about Robinhood now.
Yeah.
You see
low
it
barrier to entry
all the time.
And
so now, even if like, yes, maybe 99% of the people, 99 out of 100 people that use it, keep it as that $5 investment. They're using it more out of entertainment and gambling than they are as investing. But it's gonna trigger something in that one person out of 100, and they're gonna go and do something more on it.
100%. I mean, I always tell people, I'm like I said at the beginning, I mean, you can literally put $5 into Robinhood, invest in a handful of companies. You're not going to get full shares, but you're still in it. And then I said, there's something to be said about as soon as you're into it and you have money behind the success of a company, you start paying attention daily. Like it just becomes a part of what you do. Like you go to Robinhood instead of Instagram and you start scrolling through the news and you're like, oh, you want to know.
I look at it as like, like I remember being in high school and like going to, the JV basketball game. It's like, I couldn't care about this basketball game. It was just something to do with friends. And I know no one on the team. I have no interest in watching this game.
Sure. Yeah.
But then, you're sitting there with a couple buddies and you each have like $2 in your pocket. Like, all right, I got $1 on the blue team who's got red.
Yeah.
And then as soon as you have $1 riding on the game, well, now it's exciting. Now you have a purpose for watching it. So I look at that as the same thing with Robinhood of like, yeah, probably most people are just like, they're hearing the word Tesla everywhere.
Yeah.
They're hearing the SpaceX program. They're like, Tesla's going to go big, man. Let me put $5 on it.
Right.
And now they're paying attention.
Yeah. No, it's true. I mean, it gets us all more involved in everything. I mean, I'm not a super political person, but it's all going to affect like the campaign this fall and some of that. It's just crazy.
I never gave a shit about politics.
I'm with you.
Until I started paying taxes and having investments.
Yep. It does trigger something in your head. You're like, oh shit, I'm a part of this whole thing.
Until and like I was way too late in life to care or follow politics. Like it was a little embarrassing how late it was. But yeah, as soon as I started paying taxes, I was like, I would like to know where my money is going.
Yeah. Right. Oh, it's important, right? I mean, yeah, it's exactly. I think it's the same thing, right? Until your skin's in the game,
Yeah.
you don't really care. And
Does
it's
is Robinhood is it only like individual stocks, or is it
you
more?
yeah, it's only individual stocks. They have so I can do options on there, individual stocks. I know they're working on getting mutual funds because that's like the big thing that I think
Yeah.
they're missing. That you can do ETFs, which is I don't
Hmm.
know if you know what those are, but like
Yeah.
so that's helpful. They have crypto now. So they have I mean, pretty much everything except mutual
Yeah. Okay.
funds in there.
Yeah.
So I mean, I think for like, I mean, you can do day trading on there if you really wanted
Hmm.
to. It does everything that I really need to. Kind of the same as you. Like it does everything except the mutual funds, which is like just like long term stuff that I
Yeah.
focus
Yeah.
on.
What I mean,
So
it's not sexy.
no, not
So
sexy,
it's
but it's the stuff that pays. You
um
know, I mean,
yeah,
and
the
again,
one.
the hope is you're going to be doing this. If you're in your 20s, your hope is that you don't just touch it for 40 years.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And
I mean, the big thing
or
that I
maybe
keep
longer.
like preaching to my friends and family is like set up a retirement account. Like there's huge tax benefits to this.
Yeah,
And it's like just treat it like, 200 bucks a month. And then it always makes it easy of like you're not allowed to touch this till you're 59 and a half or
yeah,
60 or whatever it is.
right.
That was the first thing that I had. That was the first account I opened up,
That's great.
was a retirement fund, because I was like, I want to get it set up so that all I have to do until I'm 60 is just maintain.
Yeah.
And then once I know I hit 60, then I can stop working and like all that. But yeah,
I mean, it's
I
powerful too to do this now while you're in the, prime of CrossFit and like all the things you're doing because you're just setting up a long-term success route for you too. Like,
I mean,
imagine
my
trying to
my
do this once you're like you're thinking about slowing down with it.
well, I mean, my first couple of years in CrossFit, so like as a college student, I was making a shitload of money.
Yeah.
Like it's all relative, but as a college student, I'm rolling in it.
When you're going to like
And
quarter beer night and yeah,
yeah,
that's kind of money.
exactly. Well, it's like so before CrossFit, I was living in my parents' basement. Um, I was driving a $300 Oldsmobile. I was wearing most of my dad's clothes of just like I would like be doing laundry and like I'm like, oh, I need new t-shirts. So I'm like
Yeah,
stealing my dad's stuff.
sure.
Yeah, I mean, I'm living as close to zero expense as you can get.
Right.
Um, and then I like in 1 year I start making good money. And I
Yeah,
was
it's
like,
crazy.
I just looked at it like, all right, well, I lived off $0 a month last month. Why would that change?
Sure.
Um, so I looked at it as like, okay, I can afford to go to a movie or go on a date or something. I could put gas in my car, but other than that, like I was happy last week on no money. Well, I'm going to stay happy this week on no money, and just like all of it, just putting it into investments and putting it
Yeah.
away. And then I kept doing that. Like even still, I don't really purchase anything. Like there's the expenses of gas, groceries, all that stuff. But I mean, in terms of like hobbies, I don't really have any hobbies that cost me
No.
money. But it's like cars aren't my thing. So I don't spend money on cars. Like
Sure.
I
Yeah. I mean,
like jewelry, I feel like I just see so many people that it's like I'm like, why did you buy a Rolex?
yeah.
Like
Yeah,
when you
that's
were
tough for me to
broke,
stomach
when
when I
you
see
were
those.
broke, like you had no interest in watches, but now that you have money, now you need a $15,000 watch.
Yeah.
It's like, oh man, that's just tough to justify. And like I've fallen into the trap myself. Like
Yeah.
I got a Rolex as a gift.
That's
And
the cool way to get one, I think.
well, and like I remember when I got it, well, it was kind of a gift. It doesn't matter. But I remember I knew nothing about Rolexes, and I told myself, I'm like, when I get home, I'm looking this thing up online. If it's over 50,000, I'll sell it
There you
and
go.
put it towards like the house we were planning on building.
Okay.
But if it's under 50,000, I'll keep it and like I'll gift it to a grandkid someday or
Oh, that's
something,
cool. Yeah.
Um, so it ended up being under 50,000. But then like I had it, I've worn it a couple times. Like if I'm like going out to a nice dinner, I'll put it on or something.
Okay.
But it's just not who I am. Like
Yeah,
do
makes sense.
not wear nice things or like
Right.
expensive things like that. But after I did wear it, and like, you get the comments, and then other people come out of the woodworks. Oh, I collect watches. Oh, you need to get this one, this one, this one. And then I'm going online and looking at it, and I'm like, I was about to pull the trigger on another one, and I was like, what the fuck am I doing?
You're just
Why? I'm
collecting
about to
Rolexes.
drop 25 grand on a fucking watch.
Yeah.
And like,
You're like,
I
what the
don't even,
fuck?
I want a digital watch. I want like a $50 like Garmin
Yep.
that it's like, at least it'll tell me my heart rate, and I can take my split times when I'm at the track.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
Right. Yeah. Does a little more than just looks.
But yeah, I mean, it's kind of like this trap that I think you can so easily fall into. I mean, especially like if you're on social media or anything like that, of like, no, you need the bigger truck. It's like, do you know how many fucking guys I see driving around in like a lifted Super Duty 350? And I'm like,
Sure, in Tennessee. Yeah.
you don't even have a trailer. Like,
Yeah. Why do you need that?
like that thing can tow 20,000 pounds. You don't even own a fucking trailer. Like, that is purely just a status symbol thing.
Yeah.
Of
Right.
like, I mean,
Meanwhile, they might have not have any savings and no retirement, no
yeah, I
investments,
mean,
nothing.
yeah.
That's
I really
tough,
try to be
right? It's
conscious
like,
of like, why do I want to buy this thing? Like the
yeah.
silliest thing, rims on a car.
Yeah.
Like, why did you buy rims on that car? Like, are you a car guy and like the rims help you perform better? I get that. But
Sure.
it's like, if they're just a show thing, it's like, you can't even see the fucking rims when you're in your car.
Right. Yeah.
Like,
No, you're right.
so like, why, so I mean, each their own, I
Yeah,
guess.
for sure.
I'm sure
But I
people
think
look
there's
at,
like there's definitely some smart moves, better practices. And I think to me, it's interesting to hear people like you who learn some of this through luck or through friends or
Mhm.
through whatever, learning it earlier on. Hopefully I'm hoping the podcast and talking to people like you can help, help some people who are hopefully younger too, who might just be getting out of college and getting started. And maybe they want to go buy that brand new car right away instead
Yeah.
of building their
I mean,
savings up and that
I
kind of
try to
stuff.
have the conversation as much as I can appropriately of, talking to people about savings or, investing. But then the bigger thing too is just, living frugal,
Right.
um, or just not being like the whole, like keeping up with everyone else on Instagram of,
That's
like buying these just thing. I'm like, if your neighbor didn't have that, would you need it?
right.
Type thing.
Keeping up with the
Um,
Joneses type stuff.
yeah, it's just, oh, I just see so many people falling victim to it. And I'm like, man, if you knew how much that money could do for you if you invested it and saved it, how powerful that would be in 10 years.
Yeah.
Whereas like, you're going to be paying on that truck for 6 years. And
Right.
then like by year 4, the truck is worth nothing. And then it's like, if you just, bought in the truck that was actually the appropriate size for you and bought something more reasonable and invested all the rest, like the financial freedom that you'd have down the road, oh, it'd be worth so much more than that
Oh yeah.
stupid fucking truck.
Right. Right. I think
But
people don't realize sometimes how well, hopefully if you're lucky, how long life is too. And like you sacrifice a little bit now and build wealth through savings,
well, I mean,
investments, real estate. You
it's
know what
my
I mean? And
favorite.
you're,
It's my favorite thing. Like when I see someone that like just bought something extravagant, I'm like, what are you thinking?
yeah,
Like that car is over your annual salary.
that
How can
stuff's
you justify
nuts.
buying? And they're like, life short, man, life short. I'm like, no,
It's
life is
not.
literally the longest thing you'll ever do.
Yeah.
It's not short. Like life is going to be hopefully be a
Hopefully,
very
yeah.
long time.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's so true though, right? I mean, there's like that balance of living your life, and taking
Yeah. I think
really like living it up as much as you can, but you got to, to your point, most of us will probably
that
have long
is
lives.
the kind of where I'm at right now.
Yeah.
I was broke and then I started earning money, but I kept living like I was broke.
That's
Um,
powerful.
and so, but I've done that for so long. Like I never made the adjustment
Sure.
to, buy myself something nice, like I've bought nice things, but only assets. I
No,
don't
that's smart.
spend money on like any depreciating stuff.
Okay.
So like the biggest ticket items that I've bought are like property and houses.
Just
Um,
smart.
and so, you know, that's the one thing that I've tried. The main reason I've tried having discussions with other successful people is like, how much of your money do you spend on a smile or just
Yeah.
like on a good
You know
time
what?
or a
I might steal that
vacation?
from you. That might become one of my questions on here because that was a
How
great
much,
way
how much
to.
do you spend on a smile?
I like it's a great way to think about it. It's a really simple way, and putting into a percentage, you can ask anybody and everybody, and
Hmm.
I'm sure you get different answers every time.
Yeah. Cause I remember my one friend that I was asking, like, how much do you invest? And I think his number was like 30 or 40%. Um, or no. And the other question was, how much do you spend on a smile? And I think it was between 15 and 20%. And he was like, why, how much do you spend? He's like, is your number about the same? I was like, no, my number is zero. I don't spend any money if it's not like spending money on a vacation, not happening with me.
Really,
I
never.
was like, well, right now, it's
Yeah.
like
Oh
any
yeah. I
corner
mean,
of the world I want to go to, I can just like call up a CrossFit gym or coach a seminar or like a sponsor. If a sponsor
oh, you
flies
talked about
me,
this in like our first conversation was
yeah,
just like you get it once you got into the spotlight a little bit, you start getting everything for free.
yeah. So I mean, like the last like quick trip we went on, um, I com- I had a sponsor fly me to Paris, and then I competed in London, and then we took like a couple day trip over to my friend's place in Italy.
Oh, that's
And so it's like
crazy.
so my investment on that trip was, you know, my plane ticket from London to Italy.
Does it
And it's
even
like,
work that way with like the Dubai CrossFit Championships? Did you have sponsors fly out there and
I mean,
hook you
you
up?
try to line it up. Like you'll try to hit up sponsors of like, hey, are you going to be there? Like, can we arrange an appearance? Or, you know, certain sponsors have a travel stipend.
Oh,
So you
okay.
know, for your year of competing, they will pay for X amount of travel per
Oh, wow.
year.
That's
So
awesome.
you try to line it up.
Yeah.
Uh, but yes, I mean, there are certain things that I can't justify spending money on. But
Yeah.
so on one hand, it's like I save, but then on the other, it's like, well, what's the
Early
point of
spending.
what's the point of working so hard if I'm not going to reward myself with something?
Yeah. Sure.
Um, so you know,
Gotta have
I'm
some
trying
stuff.
to find that like responsible level um, of like, you know, something like a vacation.
Yeah.
You know, I've learned to really try to like focus on buying things or spending money on things that I actually enjoy. You know, I'm not trying to buy a car to impress my friends. I'm not trying to buy like this fancy outfit or jewelry to impress strangers on the sidewalk. I don't give a shit. I don't give
Yeah.
a shit about those things. You know, even something as simple as like my haircut. I shave my head myself because it's free.
Yeah.
For an $80 set of clippers, I've had free haircuts for 14 years. Um,
That's the way I know. I have like very wavy longer hair. I need to go to that method. I'm about there. I'm tired of going to the haircut place and spending, in Chicago. It's fucking expensive.
yeah, I mean,
I
like
think it's so stupid.
I've done it like a handful of times over the last couple of years, and every time
Yeah.
I'm like, man, the haircut was $50, and then like, how much do I tip? Like, I don't want to be rude, and like,
Yep.
yeah, I mean,
And you're
if you're
like,
doing that
fuck.
every 2 weeks, it
It's
adds up.
expensive, man.
If you're
Yeah.
buying a coffee every
Right.
day, it adds up. Like,
Yep.
it's not big that one time, but
Right.
when you make it a habit, part of your routine,
Right.
oh,
If it becomes part of your monthly expenses quickly, you have a
it's
big chunk
another
of money
car
that's just,
payment.
yeah, it's another car payment. Exactly.
Um,
Yep.
yeah, so I'm personally trying to work on justifying spending money on myself for things that I actually want because
Yeah.
like I'm big into like range shooting,
Yeah. Okay.
like going to the range, shooting
That's
steel
cool.
targets. Like I'm not into hunting, just not my thing, I
Just
guess.
target practice though.
Professional dirt shooter.
Yeah.
And you know, like there will be like this like a new rifle or like I'll see one that I'm like, oh my God, that's beautiful. And I'll look at it and I'm like, oh, I can't justify that. I can't justify that. And Sammy's the first one. She's like, oh my God, will you just spend like you work so hard, like reward yourself with something. I'm like, oh, I can't. You
Yeah.
know, and I still have this broke guy's mentality of like, oh, I can't. Who am I to spend that much on something that I'm not going to make any return off of?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. But you probably will be very financially successful too. I mean, down the road. I mean, that's like you think that's Warren Buffett's motto or
yeah,
his memento, right? I feel like there's got to be a balance, like probably to Sammy's point, you
Exactly. I
know.
think it's a big thing of like, I think there needs to be a balance, and I feel like most people in our generation are so far one way, and I'm
Yeah,
I'm probably a little bit on the extreme in the other of like how much I save and how little
sure.
I actually buy. Um,
I always talk about, you know, not to like shit on any of my coworkers, but like I have friends at work, they live in downtown Chicago. So already you're paying for like a 1 bedroom apartment. You're
yeah,
paying, God, I don't
arm and a
know.
leg. Yeah.
Who knows? I don't know how many, over 2 grand, 3 grand a month probably to live downtown.
Hmm.
Then they walk in with a huge Starbucks every morning. They go out to lunch and spend 15, 20 bucks on lunch,
Yeah.
get another coffee in the afternoon, and they're out having drinks at night. I mean,
Yeah.
you
It's
know how
like,
much
dude,
money that is a week?
your paycheck just
That's just
for that day.
you're just fueling your lifestyle at that point.
Yeah.
There can't be much left over after that.
Whereas like I'm on the other hand of like, I moved to Tennessee because I learned about Vermont state taxes. And I was like, see you
Yeah, I
later.
figured. Yeah,
I was like,
doesn't Tennessee
it's a
have like is it no income
zero.
tax?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Vermont was 9% or like 8.9%. And Tennessee was zero. So
That's
that was
wild. Yeah, Illinois is creeping up. I know. It worries me. Need to go to a
yeah, I
place
mean, like
like
I have friends that live in California, and
ugh.
I'm like, what are you doing?
I,
Like,
you know what? It's funny for being a finance guy. Like, I would love to live in California. Actually was born in California, and we moved to Indiana, and it's like the most beautiful place on earth to me. But I'm sure if I had to
yeah.
actually pay those taxes, I would quickly be like, never mind, bad idea. Let's get
Well, I
out of
mean,
here.
you're already paying federal, then 13.5% state,
Yeah,
and then they have a was it a luxury tax
yeah. I think they have like
for
another
like
tax on top of it.
performers.
Yeah,
So I mean, if you're an athlete that lives in California,
yeah.
dude,
You
like get an apartment in Miami and
sure,
claim that as residency, you know?
right?
But yeah, I always look at like, I want to go without luxuries today so I can have freedom tomorrow.
Yeah, right.
Um, and so I think I'm getting to that stage where it's like, okay, I can stop penny pinching, nickel and diming, like living super, super cheap, and start, just enjoying some nicer things in life, or, letting my hair down.
Yeah.
But in my situation, it's like I'm able to make that transition that way. But for people our age that have lived luxuriously and haven't
Oh
saved, they can't buy the time back and
no.
go the other way. So
I'm sure it's way harder. I mean, how do you backtrack that lifestyle? And usually, like probably what you've gotten used to spending, or just you're over your head already. So
I remember I had one friend, and he was like, he was kind of explaining to me like some of the luxuries he had in his life. And he's like, oh man, like when I was at this job, I was making great money. And like, he's like, oh, I got all my clothes dry cleaned. And then he got laid off. He's like, well, what am I going to do? Stop having my clothes dry cleaned? He's like, no, I've grown accustomed. I'm like, yes, you stop taking your clothes to the dry cleaner. Like,
yeah, you
what
save your
don't you get?
money,
You can't afford it anymore. So you don't do it anymore. And
right?
in his mind, he was making perfect sense of, well, no, I like it, so I'm going to do it.
Oh
And I was
boy,
like,
that's
oh,
dangerous.
yeah. Like,
Yeah,
dude,
that's
you can't
dangerous,
afford it,
right?
man.
Yeah, man. Come on, don't stretch yourself too thin. Oh my God. That's too funny. Well, cool, man. Well, hey, thank you so much. I couldn't believe it. I just looked down at my phone. We've now between the two parts, we've done 3 hours. So we are
Oh,
crushed.
Jesus.
We just did a Joe Rogan podcast, basically.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. This was so fun. It was good to get to
Dude,
talk
yeah.
to you about.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Good to talk about, your career. I'm pumped for you. I'm pumped for, the online competition and hopefully
Yeah. Yeah. Let's
California.
go.
Yeah, I'm rooting for you, man. And good luck with all your investing. It'd be fun to chat with you down the road a little bit. I've been meeting some people on here who we're going to do like a year from now or 6 months from now and just see how the investing's changed and some of that. Cause I'm glad we
Absolutely.
actually got to talk about that. So let's
Yeah.
definitely do it
Yeah.
again,
You've got
man.
my number.
Yeah.
I guess I'm self-employed. So like my schedule's open, man. I
Yeah,
just
no,
work
no,
out a
it
lot.
was funny. I mean, yeah, it seems like you definitely have like your training schedule down, but this is awesome that you're able to do this. So
Yeah.
thanks for coming
Awesome.
on. It was great talking to you. And yeah, good luck with everything, man. I'm
All
rooting
right,
for
man.
you.
Hey, have a good one.
Awesome. You too, man.